Hey there, welcome to the Adam Dunn Show. I am your host, Adam Dunn, and this week we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be rehashing an old show, what I like to call a redone. We're bringing back a show from Season 2, Episode 3. This is back when Mitch was helping me co-host the show, so as many of you guys know, listening to the show, that was back when it was pretty damn informative. Now, you know, we try our best, but in general, we had the kid, we had Murphy Murray, we had Mitch, all co-hosting the show at the time. We were coming out of iCannabis Radio, and we had Chris Rosales actually doing the tech stuff, so he was the MTI of the moment. But this show I thought was unique because the title of it is Jazz and Hash, and since we're rehashing the episode, what better thing to do than rehash it with a hash episode. We had Nikki T on the show, speaking of hash. We had Willie Waldman from Banyan, and also calling in with Willie, we had Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction. It's great to watch some of these old episodes because you can really see if they pass the test of time. Keep an eye out for all of my incredible predictions, which we'll see if they came true or not. But also, next week we're going to have Tommy Chong live on the show, so we'll be back to live shows. And we're also going to have Tommy from FishHead, so Tommy and Tommy, and Jason Harris from Jerome Baker Designs, all calling in, zooming in on this call. And we also got Kevin Longo from Cannabis Cabinet down in Pueblo. He'll be opening up a new gig called Glass Cabinet. Imagine that. Perfect name. And so we're going to talk to him. And so next week, December 11th, that's the live show. But today, kick back and relax and we'll watch one of my old episodes. That should be fun. Thanks, guys. This one's for you, Tony Baloney.
Practically every one of the top 40 records being played on every radio station in the United States is a communication to the children to take a trip, to cop out, to groove. The psychedelic jackets on the record albums have their own hidden symbols and messages, as well as all the lyrics of all the top rock songs. And they all sing the same refrain. It's fun.
This is a special request. We don't want you to smoke genetically modified ganja. We want you to smoke the real thing. We want you to smoke the natural herb. Some call it marijuana, some call it sensimilla, some call it lamb's bread, and some people call it ganja.
Welcome to another edition of the Adam Dunn Show. I am your host, Adam Dunn.
And I'm your co-host, Mitch Shanasa.
And we are a little bit late, but, you know.
Not our fault. We were here. The internet is late for us.
The internet was late, and if it gets choppy or crazy, it's just because we're struggling here on our internet connection.
Yeah, we're doing this whole thing over a wireless connection, which is insane.
We'll see.
We'll see
how it goes.
Chat room will let us know how sane or insane it is.
So we have a very special episode.
Classing it up. I feel like the cold weather comes in, the holidays come around.
Yep.
You got to class it up.
Well, yeah, and we looked forward to this one because coincidentally, perfect timing. You know, I love it when serendipitous things happen and, like, you know, your favorite band is playing on the day of your show, and you're just like, hey, maybe you guys want to come onto the Adam Dunn Show. Now, of course, we couldn't get the main crew of the band because you know how that is. And the band we're talking about is Jane's Addiction, who's playing tonight at the Ogden. So anybody who's a big fan.
Are you a big fan, Adam?
A huge fan, yeah.
Is that why your favorite band, yeah?
One of my favorite bands, I'd
really?
say. I'd say so because it's just the energy of the shows are always so good. You know, that's the thing. It's like it's not just because you're like, I mean, obviously you love all the music, but it's the crowds are really good. You know, and
I used to practice to their CD way before I met any of them.
Mike,
you got to get on Mike.
You know, way before I ever met Perkins or Perry Farrell and played on their records, I used to just practice to their music. I would smoke a bunch of weed in Salt Lake City, Utah, at my brother's house.
This is Willie Waldman, by the way.
I would take my trumpet and jam out to the Jane's Addiction and be like, just going nuts on this shit. It was awesome, man. They had a lot of power.
Well,
anyway,
I mean, the key is, the thing is that they're such an eclectic sort of band in their own right, because obviously Perry is a vocalist. He's not, I would say he's a singer, but he's really a vocalist because he's got his own thing, and that's, he made up his own style and can run with it forever, and people appreciate it. And so it's, so anyway, so that was my thing I'm doing tonight, obviously. So
Adam's going to be at the Jane's Addiction show.
I will be at the Jane's Addiction. And that is the reason that this whole show kind of got together, because we were thinking, hey, let's, because we've been talking about, we always, we like to bring music in, but now we did the white reggae thing, right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Ryan is so disinterested.
How many times did we do the white reggae thing? Twice?
What do you mean? How many times did we haven't?
We had it twice. So anyway, we did that. We crushed that one.
Yeah, killed it.
Killed it. Beat it down. So now,
Ryan, it's like 90 degrees in the studio. That's how breathable hemp is, ladies and gentlemen. It's 90 degrees, and Ryan has his jacket.
This is the
zipped
summer
up.
jacket.
it's because he was in Vegas last week. He's so used to the heat.
chilly?
Yeah, he's chilly now. Ooh, it's cold.
And I even wore my shoes. I was like, if I don't wear the Adam Dunn shirt, everybody's gonna yell at me, and then you guys don't have the.
Yeah, you would wear the band's show to the concert.
Everybody else, every time I don't wear it, I get in trouble.
Yeah, that's your job, is to get in trouble, actually. So
Yes, that's pretty much why I'm here, right?
Yep,
pretty much.
Pretty much. So,
Obviously
can we
not-
see the shirt or what? How many lanyards do you have on right now?
Well, I have my badge and my key lanyard.
Okay, it seemed like a lot of lanyards.
There's only 2.
When guys,
It's only 2.
there's always that guy
He rolls his
with
eyes.
way too many lanyards on.
Oh
That's
yeah,
always-
there's always that guy. He's got him like 10 years ago on for the festival.
right.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
gets-
exactly. Every lanyard he's ever had, he wears
I
them.
mean. With those
Like
guys.
a badge of honor. I call it buffing your badge. Like, ooh, look how cool I am, man.
Yeah, but it gets you backstage most places because they just assume one of those is the one.
They don't
we
wanna
had
look.
some- We
Yeah,
had
they're
some
not gonna go
fake
through
out
that.
badges for a while that me and Ben used for a while. Yeah, we did actually have a set of those about 10 years
Well, it's
ago.
a good.
They worked pretty good.
I'd actually met a couple one time when I was backstage, and it was like they one upped us actually because we went back. We're always
it's always
getting
that.
into shows, and we always have our angles, and we're backstage talking to and then the guy's like, "Hey, what color are the bands to get the VIP?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're like some multicolored speckle thing." And then his girl pulls her bag out, and she's got literally
All of
every
them?
single colored band in the world, right? And I was like, "Oh, that's smart." And she's like, "Oh yeah, what we do is we just contact the band companies and say, hey, we're going to do a festival. We need to see some samples." And then they get samples from all the different people,
That's
and
so
then they just
good.
line them up. They have the blues, the reds,
God,
the greens.
that's genius.
Yeah, and they
That's
had,
awesome.
She said,
Now
"No,
everyone's
in the car,
gonna be
I have
doing
a whole
that.
stack."
That's like having lock picks. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Because,
That was
we've
my
been in
better
the
than
band.
lock
Wait,
picks.
That's
we've
my
been
tip
in
of the day.
band. Hey,
Tip of the
Adam,
day.
check this out. We've been in the band and not had the right pass. Like, we've done a Banyan concert at Lollapalooza where they wouldn't let me and Mike Watt to the stage because the Gestapo, I call them, the Gestapo security people. Your pass is not good enough.
Yeah.
You cannot play on this stage. Man, we're going to play in 5 minutes,
Yeah, that's usually
Barry
that-
Farrell runs the session I played on a solo record. You do not have the right pass. You
That was my
cannot
trick
play.
always, was that I got to go on in 5 minutes because I always looked like I was in a band even though I wasn't. So I just had to look like I'd roll up and they'd be like, "This guy looks like he's in a band," and I'd be like, "I got to get on stage in 3 minutes and let him through." That was
You're
that's a
lucky,
classic.
man, because I didn't look like I was.
Yeah,
in
you don't
a
look
band.
like you're in a
Me and
band is the
Perkins,
problem.
Yeah, you have the
that's
opposite
my
problem. You got the
man.
opposite problem.
I got the opposite problem.
So
So we got
the
that,
cops when
but
they see me,
when we're talking about horn players and jazz, there's nothing classy enough about herb. You got to go straight to the hash, right? So we're matching
so
it with
we're going for
jazz
hash.
and hash episode,
Jazzy-
which is like Willie walked in the
jazzy-
studio and the first thing he
jazzy-
wanted to talk about was
Wait.
hash.
I wanted to talk about the wonderful Lebanese hash I got
There you go.
from Adam 10 years ago in Amsterdam when I first met him playing with Stephen Perkins, drummer of Jane's Addiction, and I have a band called Banyan. It's Stephen's band, and it's all improv free jazz. We were doing these drum sessions with Steve Smith at Journey, right? So anyway, Adam picks us up in this barge. It's killer, dude. So I've never been to Amsterdam. And Perkins like, I got this friend. You really like this guy. He'll come and pick us up. So first of all, he drives up the airport in this little 3-wheeled Italian bread delivery truck. It looked like some out
little
of
Vespa car there.
You know,
it
little
looked,
Vespa.
yeah, it looked like it was an ammunition delivery car. So then we go drive, and then he gets us on this barge. Now, this barge isn't just your regular old fishing boat. No, it's like some cool World War II landing craft or some crazy
Yeah,
thing.
it was like a
What was it?
a tender. It was a tender for a bigger boat, so it's like a military tender. So it's really very agile.
Yeah, but it was killer, dude. So we cruise all through town in these canals. I'll never forget it. This is something I'll never forget. But the bombest move, was the Lebanese hash I got. Oh, yes, and the good Moroccan. Yum, yum, yum. And then, of course, I had to get all the black with the gold stamp. But, dude, hands down, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the thing about Amsterdam is if you're, I mean, you can grow all the best weed, but you can't recreate those flavors from the imports and those imported hash. And see, he's right on point for our story there because there's a lot more to hash than what people are smoking these days right now. There's a lot of history involved.
Dude, you were an expert because I'm just going to finish the story real quick. So then we pack all our gear on this.
Yeah, there's no end to this story.
We pack our gear on this big thing of his, and we drive up to the Paradiso dock. We unload our gear. Anyway, Perkins rolled these ounce joints out of these giant drumsticks out of weed, and anyway, proceeded to play this concert with these giant.
Yeah, well, it was actually a drum clinic.
Well,
yeah, and so the funny part was that everybody who was there was very serious. They were serious drummers. They were not there to mess around, So
he pissed everybody off. So he jumps up and he starts doing this drum solo with these weed sticks. So all the Americans are nuts, Adam and us. But the real Dutch people were real prim and proper. How's it?
Real stiff.
I was in marching. I was in a classical orchestra, and I felt like I was in orchestra at Memphis State University with my probation, my scholarship on probation, and my suit and tie on my best behavior. You know what I mean?
It was that kind of event.
Oh yeah, and these people freaked out on the fact that we were playing, with these giant, 2-foot long joints that Adam rolled up, and Perkins is playing this drum solo. We thought it was the greatest thing of all time. The hippies
It was.
Going,
It was the best thing I've ever
But they were prim and proper, though. But it was a good education of how, it was legal over there, and the locals didn't seem to really be into it.
No, exactly. And the thing is, it was the funny part was that he kind of told the crowd that he has this new technique with these 1 ounce drumsticks, and a 1 ounce drumstick doesn't sound very exciting. You're like, really, 1 ounce? That's pretty light, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden he pulled out these two giant. It was very Cheech and Chong because he stood up on the drums and did the whole thing with and then nobody clapped.
Nobody clapped.
One guy was like.
It looked like a Ferris Bueller movie where the whole class and the teacher is all ready to, what the, what
you can swear.
Well, what the heck? You know what I mean? No, for real. If I ever did a movie, I'd have to put that scene in it just because you had this prim and proper crowd. You know what I mean? Like the Chicago Symphony crowd. You know what I mean? You don't light up a big one in the Chicago Symphony.
And the funny part was that Perks told us later that Bruce Dickinson was there also with his son from Iron Maiden, and he was pissed.
He was not pleased.
He was not happy at all.
No.
So I was like,
And
really? I didn't know that for 10 years later. I was like, really?
He went
was
off
there?
on
I
us.
didn't even know he was there.
No,
Yeah.
he went off on us.
Yeah.
And then I finally said to him, we grew up on Run to the Devil, though. Run to the hills.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, what about all this 6'6" stuff? No, I actually saw Iron Maiden in 79 or 80, right? Didn't we? And they had the skull, all the 6'6". No, he was going off on us like a middle school teacher parent would. I couldn't believe it. Then we found out it was Bruce. He was really going off on us and mad at us.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I missed
all
all
that.
that.
Wrote 666. Slow down here, man.
Yeah, no, it was a very. That was actually one of the better organized weird things we did in Amsterdam.
Well,
we did lots of weird stuff, but that was one of the
thing
better
I want to
ones.
say about jazz. We out party all those fools and always have. Jazz players from back in the Gene Krupa, the Coltrane days, we smoke a ton of weed. We do just fine and play more complex music than all of them.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know what their problem is. Jeez,
this guy used to be straight edge and go around and beat people up at shows.
Did he?
Yeah, he was
Not jazz shows, though.
Not jazz shows. Who's beating people up at jazz shows?
Nobody beat somebody on jazz shows.
No.
Yep.
But on that note, I'm going to hit up Rick and get him on. Rick Cusick from High Times has done a lot of research into the history of cannabis in America and how it ties in with jazz is why we have weed.
Pretty much.
You know?
It was the gateway drug or the gateway music. It's gateway music.
Mentor, selling pounds of weed in Vegas.
We can't take calls. Well, that's going to piss on today's show a little bit. All right. Well, technical difficulties are going to prevent us from having any of our call-in guests. Bad news. That almost makes up for it, to be honest.
Is there a way that we can do it via
that phone that's plugged in down there? There's like a weird... you know about that secret phone?
Some ghetto engineering like we do at Snoop Doggy Dogg Land,
Can we just put someone on speakerphone?
Yeah.
Well, does it work well?
Yeah, well enough.
Okay. Let's give that a shot.
Yeah, we can. Wait, where there's a will, there's a way. Right?
I'm gonna try this.
Don't give up easy, right?
No,
Never,
that's
never,
definitely
never.
not happening.
And if anybody knows how we do things, it's like we have.
Oh, we
never,
can even plug right into the phone. I don't even have to just hold it up to my mic. Okay.
I don't know.
Let me give this guy a call.
We're getting
Allow
crazy.
me to step away from the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, we're back on again.
We're going now, everybody. Don't worry.
Having a trumpet player in the room is pretty awesome.
It is. It's like having a sampler or something. You know? It's like instant
Better
sampler.
than a
But
sampler.
way
There's real
classier.
breath
Way
involved.
classier. Yeah.
Of course, because we don't even know what's going to happen. That's the best part. It's not like you're
there's
pushing a
real
button or
breath
anything. It's
involved. It's too easy to press a button, right?
and he can just whip up.
Hey,
anything.
Rick. So, all right, check it out, buddy. We're having technical difficulties, so I'm gonna actually be talking. I'm plugging my cell phone into the board right now, so hopefully this will work. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear me, but I'm getting
talk
limp
close
mic
enough.
too. Hold on one sec. Let me
mic.
plug you in.
Limp mic. We got major dick.
It sounds like he says that too frequently. He says it with such
limp mic.
getting
The
limp
technical term. All right. The other
Let's see.
thing is my battery's dying. Can you hear me, Rick?
All right, we need.
Okay, you can hear me. I don't know if I can hear you yet. I don't
Barely.
think we can.
Can you bring the volume up?
Can you hear me now, Rick? Oh, keep talking, buddy. We're checking your levels. This is a little impromptu. I hear you. I don't know where I'm hearing you from. Oh, I hear you on.
Are you not plugged into your phone all the way? You have that
That may be it. That may be it.
You gotta take
Rick,
your
hang
case
on.
off, dude.
I gotta take the case off. And if
Damn,
anyone can find an iPhone 4 charger, that's gonna determine.
Why don't you just call him from my phone?
Okay, that's a great point. You know what, Rick? We're gonna call you back from another phone real quick, buddy. All right,
Wow,
thanks
this
for
is-
hanging with
This is
us.
the most technical show ever.
It's terrible.
terrible. Sorry,
It's terrible.
We've had flawless shows though, where we've been like, "Wow, how
Really
did that,
on point
how
with
did
it.
that go down?"
Well, no one's listening live right now is the good news.
Oh, that's awesome.
So everyone's going to watch this and they're going to be like, they're not talking about weed. They didn't do the news. There's some guy playing a trumpet the whole time. I don't know what's going
How
on.
long is this conversation gonna take? I got 17% battery.
We're going to use Chris's phone, I think.
All right, not my
Chris's
phone.
phone.
Yeah.
Got some background music going.
No, we need background. I don't even have my headphones on. Today's a crazy show.
I'm writing an original song for you. Nice and
The Adam Dunn Show theme, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
theme songs aren't a bad thing. So, Rick's,
All right, headphones back on. We're going to have Rick talking about the history of cannabis and jazz any second now. Sorry for the this is so amateur. We don't like to be this amateur. But we can take this moment to shout out our sponsors. Definitely a big shout out to Way to Grow. 6 locations all over Colorado, 7th one on its way. Right now, I think it's Black Friday all
Black
month
Friday
is the
all
sale.
month. Every day
right?
is Black Friday. Yes, exactly. There's
So-
sales on all sorts.
6 sales on pretty much everything, and then if the price isn't good enough for you, go in there, and when they ask you what your account is, tell them Adam Dunn Show.
Boom.
And it'll probably be a better hookup than you're used to
I think
getting.
usually when they do that, all these buns, confetti shoots everywhere. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah,
all
they-
these
they-
alarms
they-
go off.
like,
They pretty much are like, well, you're going to need a truck to bring all this stuff home. Here's your brand new truck.
yeah, free stuff. It's crazy. It is literally. It's a pretty awesome experience. You should try it out.
Yeah, definitely recommend if you go to Way to. You know what? Even if you don't usually go to Way to Grow, go to Way to Grow. Buy, just buy whatever. So
Yeah,
something
bam.
cheap. Adam Dunn Show
They
at
have
the
candy
register.
at the registers.
Yeah, there you go.
They have butane though. Too,
Candy's
so
free.
now they have.
Oh, and
here
the
we
phone
go.
is
Here we
ringing for
go.
Rick Cusick. You guys hear him? Because I hear him.
I hear him.
I hear him.
We'll hear him.
I can't hear anything.
Hopefully we'll hear Rick.
we
Mr.
are.
Cusick, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh! Welcome to the Adam Dunn Show. Chris keeping it real with the ghetto technology.
Okay, now tell the shit, but I heard you there for a second.
Good. All right, buddy. Well, we started kind of talking about jazz and cannabis, and that's sort of your shtick. You taught me everything I know about it, more or less. All I knew.
Well, those all lies. I lied about everything.
Well, can you lie to the audience then?
Yeah, we need some lies.
Yeah, sure. I repeat my lies often so I get them straight.
That's history for
Hey,
you.
Congra-
Congratulations on what show were you on? I saw you were on some show.
Yeah, Good Morning America
I
or
was
something.
on Good Morning New York on Fox 5. I think I did something really unique in cannabis archival world today. I actually brought real weed onto Fox and brought it out on the set.
Really?
And showed you
Nice.
real weed look like.
Wow.
You know, legalized
that
New
is
York.
big.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Especially Fox.
It was
Yeah,
pretty
especially
weird.
Fox.
Yeah,
well
especially
played,
Fox.
bud.
Go.
Yeah, I was
and they didn't
surrounded by
arrest
two
you
crazy
walking out
monkeys.
the door. The DEA wasn't waiting for you. The guy in the
Yeah,
suit.
I said
none of
as
that.
of today.
Wow.
As of today, you can have marijuana. They won't arrest you if you keep it. You can have it in sight, but you can't smoke it.
So I can look at my
And
pot.
Wow, but that's still a big step, man, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there was a
He
time
was
you could
smoking
have
in
somebody
private.
rat you out over there, and they'd be waiting for you on the steps walking out.
I was waiting.
And then it's
You're not the
$2,000
first
to your
to get
lawyer.
that.
So we're all off kilter today. We don't even know if we're broadcasting live. We think it's just being recorded. There's also all
Okay,
sorts
that's
of
fine.
technicals, but it's
Yeah, as
it's
long
going to
as
be
you hear me.
essentially live. Yeah. So let's roll into it, buddy. Talk to me. We had a discussion where I knew that somehow through some line Jack Kerouac introduced Bob Dylan to weed, and that all traces back
It's
back.
sort of. I mean, it's a little convoluted, but yeah. Here's the thing. This is how it goes. Lester Young, the jazz musician, turned Jack Kerouac on for the very first time.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow, that's cool. Lester Young's badass, too.
Right. Allen Ginsberg, who was Jack Kerouac's compadre in deep literature, turned on Al Aronowitz for the first time, who was the New York jazz critic for the New York Daily News. Okay?
I had good friends with
So-
Robert Palmer, the critic at that time. Robert Palmer, the
So
writer.
you got, it's
the
actually
New York Daily.
Allen Ginsberg.
Okay.
Allen Ginsberg turned on Al Aronowitz.
Okay.
Al Aronowitz was called up by Bob Dylan one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to go talk to the Beatles over at the Delmonica Hotel. Could you get some weed and come with me?" And he said, "Sure." And they went over, and the Beatles had never smoked weed before that day. So Bob Dylan was the first person to ever turn on the Beatles, and the Al Aronowitz brought the weed with Bob Dylan that day, and Allen Ginsberg turned on Al Aronowitz. And Lester Young, the jazz musician, had turned on Jack Kerouac. That's how it works. It took me a while to figure out exactly that pedigree.
And then, so take it back, though, because really the history of jazz in the United States is the history of,
starts in the 30s.
white cannabis consumption in the United States.
Well, I'll tell you.
Gene Krupa and those guys were smoking weed in the 30s,
Oh, yeah. I
No,
mean, it all goes
Krupa's
back
famous.
to Louis Armstrong.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. My mentor, Herman Green, who's 84 now, talks stories of selling pounds in Vegas and Lionel Hampton's band in, 54, 1956. But guys were doing cannabis in the early 30s and the 20s. Like
Lionel Hampton was playing drums with Louis Armstrong in 1931 when Louis Armstrong got busted in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Lionel Hampton smoked a lot of weed. And my mentor, Herman
Oh,
Green, was
yeah.
lead sax in it. And he said all those guys from that era were smoking weed, Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
said, there was a lot of guys smoking weed. And it was big trouble, too, in those days, too. They tell the stories of having a pound of weed at the hotel in Vegas. And, boy, if you got caught, big, bad trouble,
Well, that was later on. I mean, the beginning of it, in 1900 or
Well,
so,
it'd be
jazz
1900,
started
yeah.
in Storyville, which is the only legal red light district in the United States. It's in New Orleans. Louis Armstrong grew up there, but he never smoked marijuana. But there was a lot of marijuana in Storyville. And when Storyville closed up in 1918, the U.S. Navy closed up the only red light district in the United States. When they did, all of the musicians left town and went up north. And when they went north, they carried their weed with them. And that's how
You got to
marijuana
Memphis, where I
migrated
come out
from
of. That's how I got to Memphis.
right up the Mississippi.
Yeah,
Right
because
up
I
the
come out of
Mississippi.
Memphis, and
And
we
they-
have our own little history on Beale Street. But you're right; it came right up to Beale Street, and then moved its way on up to Chicago.
And
Yep.
they didn't call it
And,
weed or marijuana. They called it gauge, right?
Well, they had a lot of names,
Yeah,
Muta, Engage, and all kinds of stuff. And we
Muggles?
said, and that really good shit.
Yeah, they had lots of names for it. I've heard a lot of names in Memphis area. I come out of Memphis, and Albert King and those guys
Yeah.
all had a lot of different names for it. But yeah, they all loved smoking that weed. Me being the white kid in the band, that was my job to come to the gig with good weed in the '80s. That was part of my way in the band was having the good smoke. Because every set break, they'd want to go out behind Bill Street there and smoke. Oh, we've got some of that good green stuff, man.
So, so tell us about you. You had done some research into like one of your favorite jazz musicians, who you also said is like father of the year, father of the century, in his life with weed. And I think people will be really, really excited to hear the kind of the full story. We started on it last episode.
I said that again.
We started talking about it last episode, but you were telling.
Oh, yeah.
But go ahead, tell the full story.
Well, what happened was it came up to Chicago in time for Al Capone Chicago. And the funny thing about Al Capone Chicago is that liquor was against the law, but marijuana was legal.
Wow.
And that's where Mez Mesro first smoked marijuana. He was one of the great marijuana smokers of all time, wrote an essential book. If you ever really want to know about marijuana culture, read Really the Blues by Mez Mesro.
Oh, I have read that. That is a killer book.
It's an incredible book, and I believe that's where a lot of Jack Kerouac got a lot of his style from reading Mez Mesro.
I remember that Mez Mesro High Times cover. I had a bunch of those for old ones. That was like a
he was awesome.
Or something.
Yeah, he was awesome, dude. That's killer. Keep going. All right, Professor, let's go now.
So when Louis got to Chicago, he was 21 years old. He spent 2 or 3 years working in bands there, and he turned Chicago on. By the time he was 25 years old, he had never smoked marijuana in his life, but he was the best cornet player in the entire world. Oh, yeah. And that's the fact. And he had already had, Chicago acclaim, and everybody knew who he was. And at that moment in time, in 1926, he smoked marijuana for the first time in his life. Wow. Now, why that's important is because within 30 or 60 days of that event, he loved his marijuana right off the bat. And within 60 days, he went into the recording studio for the very first time, recording under his own name. And Louis Armstrong and the Hot Five. Oh, yeah. And in the next 2 years, Louis Armstrong and the Hot Five, they recorded about 85 different songs. And those songs are the most influential songs in the 20th century pop music. Everything that we know as pop music comes from those songs. The 4/4 beat, the improvisational lead, the jazz vocal, the improvisational vocal. Nobody had ever done it before until Louis did it stoned.
I got to give it to you. And then Big Spider Deck and the rest of those guys came. But you're absolutely right about that. We got a little bit of a Memphis thread with the blues and rock and roll, but you're right about as far as the weed, the very beginning would be there, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even hip-hop.
Well, I played with Snoop Dogg. That's just an extension of the blues guys wanting to talk shit. Like Herman. Like, I played all the Snoop Dogg and Tupac songs. All right. But that's just an extension of like, Herman would always break the band down. And they'll tell a story, and they talk shit. Hey, man, how you doing? Here's the weather, Bob. It's a rap, basically, The beginnings of rap really trace into blues and stuff, and back to where you're talking about, really. Everything
the blues goes back again to New Orleans. It goes back to the turn of the century. Once the blues hit New Orleans around the turn of the century, it kind of migrated into jazz. And Louis Armstrong was pretty much a blues player. That's what he knew.
Well, all of them are.
And
actually.
It's all based on
wait, hold on. All them guys will tell you they're a blues player because I hang out with them old guys. All them old guys say the blues is the root of bebop and all that stuff. So I would say it's correct to call Louis Armstrong is a blues player, and then out of that he fused in all these interesting new styles of music. You know what I mean? He came up with a lot of innovative things.
The thing is, it has to do with influence because when he recorded, those records went out, and everybody heard it. Before it was the things you hear in clubs.
No,
and suddenly Louis Armstrong was the first person to put the improvisational jazz. But for me, the important thing that's right after he learned how to get high.
Yeah.
Imagine you're the best cornet player in the world, and suddenly somebody hands you a joint.
Well, I play trumpet, and I like smoking weed, so.
Yeah.
So where did Armstrong go from there? I mean, he recorded with the Hot Five, and as you said, kind of invented pop music or set the foundation for pop music.
I can't hear you from the coughing. Say it again.
Oh,
Yeah, we got.
come on, Chris.
Somebody stop coughing. And
Yeah,
somebody
stop coughing. All right, so where did Louis Armstrong go from there? You know, he recorded with the
Yeah,
Hot
well,
Five.
in 1926, 27, 28, he did Hot Five. At that point, 29, the Prohibition hit, and like everybody else, times got really rough. So he hit the road. And in 1931, he was playing at the Cotton Club in Los Angeles, and marijuana was still legal in the United States. It was still 1931, but it was against the law in Los Angeles. And he was playing at the Cotton Club with Lionel Hampton, and young Lionel Hampton.
Yeah, well, young.
And him and Vic Bertrand, as a player, went out to go smoke a joint in the parking lot, and Louis Armstrong got busted, spent 9 days in jail. And so he was actually one of the first guys to get busted for weed.
I didn't know Louis Armstrong got busted. You know, I knew a lot of this history, but that's the first for me. So he got busted at the Cotton Club.
For weed.
That's going to be down there in Hancock Park in L.A. because I lived in L.A. a long time. Wow. How about that?
It's an incredible. I mean, it goes
So he
on.
got
And
popped.
on.
Go on and on. No, that's what you're here to
Well,
do.
how
buddy.
did weed become illegal? You're touching on. So it was legal in the 20s, and now you said what?
Yeah.
Los Angeles, which I always said had the worst cops. Well, they had to be the first ones to be jerks, weren't they?
Yeah, it was a poison law. He was arrested under the poison law.
Interesting.
Which was marijuana was one listed as a poison.
It was legally a poison. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. The safest substance on earth, the
Safest
poison.
thing ever.
Wow, a poison.
So,
Yeah, right.
so he gets arrested outside the Cotton Club.
Yeah, and he does 9 days in jail. Okay, then he hits the road again. He was, and this is my favorite part of the Louis Armstrong story. He's on the road for 2 or 3 years with this band who just smokes weed, and they're called the Viper. He calls them the Vipers, you know. And all they do is just run around, and it's a rough life. I mean, he's an all black band running around down south. They spend time in jail for talking to a white woman in Memphis.
Oh, yeah, that happened in Memphis.
Okay
It
to
used to
smoke
be
weed,
split. No, it used to
Don't
be
talk to white
split.
women.
Yeah.
The entire band got locked up just for Louis talking to a white woman in Memphis. And then on another occasion, they walked up. They were in, where were they? I think they were in Cincinnati, and they walked up to the bandstand, and there was joints for every guy on the bandstand. And these 4 guys walked up in identical suits and gave Louis Armstrong a monster joint on the bandstand and said, "Pops, you're the king of the Vipers. We bring this for you."
Vipers.
We should bring that back. You
The
want to go by
Viper-
Vipers instead of Stoners now?
About that.
King of the Vipers.
Yeah, well,
Sounds
listen,
like
I
cooler.
actually have something here. At the end of his life,
Okay.
Louis Armstrong wrote a piece for personal. He wanted to testify, and he recorded it, and then he wrote it down. And it goes on quite a long time, but I'm going to read you. This is him, 1968, 1969. He's got maybe 1 year left to live, right? And he'll pick up exactly where we left off in our story. He says, and I'm quoting now, "Speaking of 1931, we did call ourselves Vipers, which could have been anybody from all walks of life that smoked and respected gauge. That was our cute little name for marijuana, and it was a misdemeanor in those days. Much different from the pressure and charges the law lays on a guy who smokes pot, a later name for the same thing, which is cute to hear nowadays. We always looked at pot as a sort of a medicine, a cheap drunk, and with which better thoughts than one would be full of with liquor. And with the penalties that came, I, for one, had to put it down, although my respect for the gauge will stay with me forever. I have every reason to say these words, and I am proud to say them from experience." Louis Armstrong, 1969.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the truth is, he didn't put it down. That was bullshit.
I wonder what gauge. Wonder what the connection was. What is that?
I don't know. They spelled it
Yeah.
Gage. You have any etymology on gauge for us, Rick?
I probably did. I probably did at some point. I've seen it spelled in Mez's book. It's Guage.
So
in
maybe-
Louis' book, it's Gage.
Right.
I don't think there's a proper name. I think people are just making it up. Here, I don't know. I can bring that, but here's an interesting thought. That when you talk about the words and all the words we have for marijuana, right? We have marijuana. We have ganja. Everybody knows ganja, right?
Yeah.
and hemp is in German is Hanf, 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 right? And cannabis, right? Ganja. What is common to all of them? The AN sound.
Right.
Okay? It is believed that the AN sound was the earliest word in Proto-Indo-European, languages lost for 5,000 years. And it is believed that that is the root word of all the words that we get for cannabis. That there's always an AN in the root of what it is. Not marijuana, that's a Mexican thing, but in all of the words that come out of Europe or Africa or India, there's always an AN. So they think that the Indo-European root for ganja is AN.
Interesting.
Yeah, I always thought that was very interesting. That's probably a word that we recovered from the dawn of civilization, or well before civilization.
And it kind of proves how long the plant's been around, at least. If there was
that's what I'm saying. It was probably the first cultivar. It was one of the 2 or 3 first things we ever learned to plant. And certainly, they had a name for it. If that was the case.
I figured it'd have something to do with sticky, right? Be like, sticky.
It just means sticky.
It's just sticky. Root word of yummy.
Now I'm gonna tell you one more thing about Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
Because that was what he wrote about 1931. And as I said, there's a lot of stories about him. He went to go see the Pope in 1951. He had an audience with the Pope. Very famous story. But what people don't know is that he was stoned when it happened, because of one of his players said we blasted a joint in the limousine just before we went to see the Pope. When he went to see the Pope with his wife, the Pope said, "Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Armstrong, do you have any children?" And famously, he turned to him and said, "No, Daddy, but we're still wailing." And it's funnier when you realize he was stoned.
Yeah, that he was ripped out of his mind when he said that to the Pope. Yeah. That's great. So, wasn't there a letter he wrote about his necessity of smoking or something like that when he was trying? You told me the story. It had something to do with him traveling, I want to say, to Europe?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. In 1954, I'll tell you exactly when he was. In January 16th, 1954, alone in his room at the Alexander Hamilton Hotel, O'Farrell Street in San Francisco, he had just come back from Japan by way of Honolulu. And at Honolulu, this is 1954, his wife was stopped at customs with a matchbox full of about 2.5 grams of marijuana. She was arrested. She was taken to jail. They got her out. She had to go to court for a week. Very public, very humiliating, something that Louis Armstrong could put up with for himself, but he couldn't put up with it for his wife. And so on that date, January 16th, in San Francisco, after all that had happened to him, he sat down and he wrote a very long letter, which I won't read all of, but he wrote a very long letter to his white manager, Joe Glazier, who had been his protector for 20 or 30 years. The mob was after him, racists were after him. Joe Glazier always protected him. And they became very successful together. And he said a very long letter, told him exactly what happened to Lucille, exactly what went down, how she got out of it. And then he said, and I'm quoting, "Now, if there's one thing you must realize, and it is very important, and I'm going to get serious with you for one moment. I don't know how long I have to go through this shit, being deceitful, conniving, and dog-ass people such as Frenchie and all that shit you think I'm supposed to do, and I can't live without." Frenchie was his road manager. "But I feel that you want it, and that's the way it has to be. But I'll tell you this, and from here on to the end of the letter, you must listen to every word I say very careful, because I have never been this serious with you, Mr. Glazier, as I am right now. You must gather all your friends that you know of, whatever you got to do about it. I mean, I'm going to leave it up to you. You know who to get. I don't care who you get. I mean, you have your ways. But the one thing I ask of you, Mr. Glazier, is you must see to it that I have special permission to smoke all the reefers I want, when I want. And if I don't, I will just have to put this horn down. That's all. Never play it again. It can be done. Nothing is impossible."
Oh, that's a killer, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, he wrote that. He sent it to his manager. They found it 2 years ago. About 2 years ago it came out.
Wow.
And nobody knows what happened. But here's 2 facts. Louis Armstrong never got busted again, and he didn't put his horn down. So something happened.
That's a baller move. I mean, that's
Yeah, that's a baller move.
Oh,
that's
the only move. Yeah,
the only
I mean, there's nothing else like that. Louis Armstrong was an obsessive writer.
We've
And
done that
every
move, but
thing
then you're
he's ever
stuck
written,
in hippie
there's
gigs.
nothing like that.
You're not playing the Chicago Symphony.
yeah. I think that's.
I've done that move, but then we're stuck in all these little hippie bars in Duluth, Minnesota, and Minneapolis. There's one bar in town you can smoke in, basically. I mean,
Yeah, it definitely limits your choices.
we got kicked out of the Jazz Standard in New York City because Snoop Dogg and Dave Aaron came to my gig in this fancy jazz bar and started launching blunts. And I can't go back anymore. That's the one place the only one place in the whole country I think we've gotten X. But sure enough, the fancy Jazz Standard. And I told him not to light the big thing, but telling Snoop Dogg not to light when he light another 2 or 3 of them. You know what I mean? But we clouded out the whole Jazz Standard, played great jazz, but they're uptight. You know what I mean?
But so for Louis, that didn't seem to be an issue after.
Well,
he
he's
wrote
big
that
enough.
letter.
He's sold enough tickets that he could be that's the nice thing when you're Louis Armstrong and you're selling 2,000 tickets at $20 a pop.
How big was he at that time, Rick?
He was big, man.
At the time,
well, he wasn't the only jazz musician to smoke weed. I mean,
but he was big, though. I mean, come on, he sold a lot of tickets. He's like James Brown. Those guys sold a lot of tickets.
Like
they
I said,
packed
he was the most
concert halls.
influential jazz musician in the world.
But he sold
so
tickets.
he
I mean,
influenced-
he sold 5,000, like these Orpheum theaters you guys see around here. He packed those places. You know what I mean? He packed the Fillmore-sized joints and stuff. I mean, he packed those things.
Oh, yeah.
And at a good ticket price.
Oh.
So he had a little bit of a leverage on these guys with that. And it's good to see him use it because basically he's telling that money guy, I sell 1,000 tickets over here at the Fillmore, or I'll put my horn down,
Well, and I said it's a long letter. That's what he says in the letter.
Yeah, that's what that's about.
He says exactly those words.
Yeah, that's awesome. He did, too. I love it, man. But he had a little leverage because he sold tickets, If he was just...
But I feel like someone couldn't do that. I feel like you couldn't have, I don't know, who is that? Who's as big as he was then now? Is that Justin Bieber?
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z, okay. Jay-Z maybe does have that much pull that Jay-Z doesn't get in trouble for.
Well, and those guys do. Snoop Dogg does it.
Like that.
Yeah.
He smokes everywhere.
Right.
I mean, there's cops and I've been working with Snoop Dogg for 20 years now, he blows his stuff in front of cops and everything.
Yeah.
Even in Utah, like Park City and stuff. I was terrified in Park City,
That would be
and I
true.
had stuff in my pocket, and the bicycle cop comes down back. The bicycle cop, too, the worst cop,
They are the worst.
They are the worst.
Oh,
They're like
the bicycle
Oh
cop.
my
They're
god!
the
And
worst,
some of them are
right?
listening right now, so you guys got to know that you're
They're
assholes.
the
The
ones
worst
they
cops.
just sit
They
right at the
are.
perfect level. If your window's just cracked a tiny bit, they've got their nose in your window.
Dude, they sneak up on you so fast. I would
such
say
a
they're the
bitch. They're like-
absolute worst. Snoop Dogg was blowing it in the guy's face. I was like, just dying, just like, oh great, is SWAT coming any second? What's going down?
Yeah.
Damn, I actually stuffed my weed in the couch, and it gets better. So we got out of the room, but I left my weed in the couch because all these. Anyway, eventually they moved the couch, and I watched my weed going outside the building. So me and my friend had to chase down these guys moving this couch that I stashed my weed in because, when the bicycle cops were around, this trumpet player wouldn't take no chance. How's that, man? I ain't no Snoop Dogg.
I ain't no Snoop Dogg.
So Rick, we're gonna jump off and actually let Willie hop on his horn for a few minutes here, but we want any final thoughts or any final parts of the story.
Nah, other than, we're coming up on over 100 years of bad laws that are changing. The first anti-marijuana law was 1912. Louis Armstrong, like I said, he went to jail for 8 days and 31, but it wasn't even illegal in California at that point, except as a poison. And then now, in that 37 hit, yeah, it's a poison, right? And I'm really interested to see that Louis. Did you notice Louis said we always thought of it as a medicine?
Yeah,
Isn't
I did notice
really
that line.
Interesting. Isn't that really interesting?
That is
you know?
interesting, 'cause
And so anyway, here we
I
are.
already know that, man.
And I think this has to be said, and I'm actually writing a story about it now. Why I know all this stuff is because Louis Armstrong took a lot of shit for being a pot smoker. He put a lot of it on the line. He wrote to the President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, and said, "You should legalize marijuana." That makes him the first activist.
Wow, that is cool as
Right?
heck, man. That is the first
That's
activist.
really happened. So what I'm saying is is he was right about everything. And we have met what's happening in Colorado, what's happening in the United States validates Louis Armstrong. And we owe a reassessment of his career with marijuana as his assistant and his helper should be made, and I intend to make that assessment.
Nice, man. Well, we can't wait to. I can't wait to hear about the article. It sounds like you have enough to make a longer work too.
You'll love it, I guarantee.
All right, buddy.
All that shit I just said is going to be in it.
Nice. Right. Well, thanks for the preview, man. We're gonna hear a little horn right in studio, which I think is pretty exciting.
Hey.
I'm going to do some Persian scale since I'm my Persian partner over
There
here.
we go. He's
I was
playing in honor
taught
of
the
me.
Persian music scale, and it's about 5,000 years old, and I'm going to play it for everybody here. And I would say that some of our first stoner music of all time was the North Indian Vedic music.
And it's a good hash crossover.
Yeah. And it's
Right?
a
We're
great
talking
hash spot to smoke some Persian hash and check out this
Good
5,000
segue.
Mitch,
Good segue.
Mitch made some hashes. That's Persian.
Yeah, there you go. Persian. I told him I could throw it in my armpit.
All right, are the snakes coming out of the baskets? Yeah, did anybody get bit over there?
Exactly what I was thinking. I didn't want to sound stupid and say it, but I was
That's
thinking
okay.
it. in
It
my
does
head.
though, but it's programmed to do that. Right? It sounds like Genie in the bottle, right? Right? You got the
Like Christina Aguilera, Genie in the bottle.
Murphy's hair doesn't come alive.
Yeah, we need some like cobras coming.
yeah,
up
we
and shit,
need
man.
some cobras.
We need a couple
I have it up
cobras.
here.
In general,
Yeah,
vipers.
no,
Fuck
and
cobras. We got
Vipers.
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 We
like
got
a pattern.
vipers right here. That's good,
No,
right?
it's-
Vipers. We're all vipers.
Exactly. You got a room full of vipers.
You don't need no. You
Yeah,
don't need no
see,
cobras.
I had to calm them down, everybody. See, I had to play my snake charming tune from the Persian Empire to calm them down over here before I got bit, right? We were worried about getting bit over here on this other side.
I worry about that a
Ryan's
lot.
always
Yeah,
worried.
we were-
Ryan's worried about
We were
everything.
like,
Ryan's a little
boy.
nervous.
I thought I was gonna die in Vegas.
Yeah,
again.
man, it was getting scary there real quick there.
I had that same.
Vegas update. What do you want to?
Well, no, man, I had that same chest pain.
Oh yeah, he
remember?
said he was having a heart attack.
Remember that fucking
No.
chest pain that I had back at Green Labs?
I didn't even hear about that.
You were there.
All right. Well, Willie, we want to
Wasn't
thank
paying
you for
attention.
being on. We're gonna bring Nikki T on as we enter the hash portion
Nice.
of our show here.
Nice. Well,
The
thank
man
you
himself,
so much.
you
We have a
ready? Yeah.
Banyan show tonight at
yeah.
Coyotes with
Exactly.
Stephen Perkins and Chris Chaney at Jane's Addiction. Yours truly here on the trumpet. And I've got a fantastic Pakistani guitarist named Fareed Hawk. He is real Northern India. Actually, he's from Kashmir. Kashmir. Anyway, he's a fantastic guitar virtuo, actually, in Indian music. So we'll be playing a lot of cool stuff tonight at Coyotes Late Night. I want to thank my partner, Adam Dunn, for having me. Thanks.
Hey, not a problem. And
Yeah.
then tomorrow night we're also going to be having Willie and crew at the Green Labs, which we need to make sure we plug before the end of the show.
Yeah, let's
We can do it.
let's
now.
talk about it right now. Yeah, so you guys know Crunchy. Crunchy is actually an awesome chef, and in next week's episode, you'll hear him talk to some chefy friends about cannabis.
for Thanksgiving special.
Yeah,
right?
Thanksgiving special, of course.
Thanksgiving with
But if you want to actually eat the food before you just hear the man talk, go on. Where can you buy the tickets, man?
I don't know if they put them on Eventbrite or anything.
They're
like that.
on we'll figure out a way.
we'll
We'll
check it
post
out.
it
We'll
on
check
our
it out.
Facebook
We'll check it out
and our
before-
channels.
We will check it out. And
But
we'll get it
you
out.
can
But it's
come
at
down
Green
to
Labs,
our office, Green Labs,
1250 31st Street.
1250 31st Street in Denver, and we will be having a fancy-pantsy dinner,
Schmancy, you're
cannabis
schmancy.
and wine
Yeah, you're
pairing.
schmancy.
And yeah, come check it out. It should be a really good time. We're going to be down there.
Well, the cool part is that Crunchy's going to be pairing.
Yeah, dinner, it's
dinners.
food. He's pairing food and wine
With
and cannabis.
It's gonna be awesome.
And he's going to be using the incredible milk machine.
Oh, he's using the milk machine.
Yeah, he's going to lay smoke over the wine. So while you're drinking the wine, you inhale the smoke.
Who's bringing the milk machine down?
It's already there. Son dropped it off this morning.
Fucking going to the lab after the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you bring the Slurpee cup?
No.
Because
we're going to use the wine glasses.
Oh, right, okay.
It's going to be schmancy.
It's going to be
Schmancy.
awesome, dude.
Yeah, schmancy.
Right on. All
only
right,
word you
Nick, are you
forgot
ready
was
to hop
schmancy.
in the hot seat?
Come on,
Yeah,
Nick,
yeah, let's
hot
do it.
seat.
Ah, the milk machine.
Yeah,
can
so we're going
see
to transition
is
from
in the
jazz
studio.
to hash.
Jazzish. Which
Jazzish.
Jazzish.
It's a good, that's
You like
your
the
guys'
Jazzish?
collabo group.
That's the Jazzish crew.
Yeah.
Jazzish.
What's going on, buddy?
You like our quality headsets?
Yeah, good mics, good
Hey,
headphones.
quality,
That's
get-
how we roll at
Get
the
a
Adam Dunn
sponsor.
Show.
You must have some sponsors for some
From
headphones.
gear, yeah.
Oh, you know what? Something might be on the works.
Good. So you can
Nice.
pass them on to us. Tell them some other guys that might need some good headsets. Or
So-
just give us all your old crap.
What's going
You
on?
can sponsor us. You can sponsor us.
Crap for you guys.
Kick down, hand-me-downs.
Hand-me-downs, we'll
I
take
think
that.
you get tax write-offs even if we do something fancy.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
Well, he's a DJ, so he's used to using one headphone.
yeah, he doesn't mind.
Yeah, this'll work. This'll
that's
work.
normal for
Mixing
him.
time. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good. I like that.
It looks cool with the little wire too.
Yeah, you look like a
It's
cyborg.
wireless. Well, it's wireless with a wire now. See, it's got a combo.
Right on, right on. Well, yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, we've been wanting to get you on, and we want to definitely do. I'll tell you what. When I checked this morning, we were at 900 YouTube subscribers. I said when we hit 1,000, we're going to do like a tech video, and you're the most requested dude. So we're definitely going to do a tech video. Not right now.
Not now, but
I would
But-
love to do one.
Do a
You know,
proper
maybe
one.
even that the little tech I showed
The
you.
little
that's-
tech that
for
made
me,
this
that's like
stuff.
the easiest thing to show people.
Super easy, and it makes
In person, I actually did a little demonstration. I've been doing demonstrations with the hemp all over the U.S. right now because I can travel with it.
Really? So you've just been rolling places with hemp and demonstrating?
Yeah. I did a little demonstration in Maine this year on stage. Did a little pressing for the crowd at the Great North Festival. It's been fun to be able to do these demonstrations, and not have to get heat for it.
Right. No, it's cool. It's and it's like right now, it's Colorado and few places that have California, of course, and places that have plethoras of cannabis and the ability to sort of play with it and have fun. And that's really what the whole thing about this. It's just separation of hundreds of different ways we can do it. There's, it's not like one. You literally can look at 10 guys doing it, and they'll all have their own little piece of the puzzle, or else they're copying somebody else and it gets kind of boring. But it's fun when you get people who really just have their own ideas, unique. Sometimes you walk in and say like, wow, never would have thought of that, but it seems to be working, you know what I mean? And you can't tell. It's almost like the gold digging shows where you see the guys all digging for gold and they all have their own technique. It's like, man, this is just like making hash. Look at it. These guys are pulling shit out, separating it, washing it, and trying to figure out where the good shit's at. It's like that's exactly
Yeah, it's
the thing.
been-
Just big scale.
It's been really fun too, because a lot of this new age marketing has been about collaborations and working with each other and showing the industry that we're one. That we can work with other groups in different states and other people even in our own state to do collaborations. Especially for some of these cannabis cups and things of that nature. But it's been fun for me doing a lot of these collaborations throughout the U.S. lately because I get to see other people's techniques and they get to see mine and we get to compare and they're like, oh shit, most of the time I'm getting something like, wow, I didn't think that, I could do it that way. And then, see Nikki T do it. And that's the way a lot of people are learning, and it's fun.
Yeah, no, and it's a lot of. It's also interesting to see how right now dry sift is becoming cool again, and it's all of a sudden now it's the hot new thing, and it's like, okay, now we're going back to basics, which is good. This is exactly what I said. People needed it from the beginning. I was like, we're all kind of jumping in right at the middle, like let's all make stuff ridiculously over-teched out when there's a whole simple way to do things.
It's funny because so much of this has already been done, and I talk to my scientist friends and they kind of just laugh at our industry and laugh at butane extracts and things of that nature. They're like, extractions have been done for years and years and years, and some of the ways that people are going about it are not the right way.
Right. Yeah, no, and there's going to be a refinement in that whole industry real fast too. It's going to, like, what's hot today might not be tomorrow. Maybe regulated out, or there's going to be so much, people putting in too much and then not getting out what they thought because they realize that it went this way with the industry, and it's kind of goes left and right real quickly now. And it also there's definitely not a clear 1 year plan. 6 months you might have a window where you're like, okay, I know it's good for 6 more months when it comes to butane extraction and things like that. Because also it's place by place, and so we'll see. I mean, that's going to play itself out, I think. As long as there's not more problems. The main thing is as long as the bigger people don't have problems with their professional systems that they've built. I mean, if that's not, as long as we don't have those things blowing up compared to the home, we know that's.
But we're seeing that every day still, even like with the high end, pumps and things like that. We're finding that, a lot of these pumps and these companies that were branded as the best pump in the industry are now finding that they're putting oil into the product.
Right.
All kinds of other weird things like
yeah,
that.
Well, for sure. There's only like one official one, and it's back ordered by 2-3 months, so people can't get it. So of course people are
Saver, Apion, everyone's talking shit about all the companies right now.
Oh, for sure. So that is
just because they weren't designed for making hash. There's not a lot of equipment that's actually designed for making hash oil. And
they're still lacking in pretty much in all forms of hash. Like even in the washing machine department, nobody really stepped the game up to make a super duper like that's the one I gotta have because it's the fucking Rolls Royce where you're like, oh good, carry thing, stainless drawers open up. There should be, that would be nice. Something a little more pro instead of it being like, what's the point?
Yeah, the washing machines. They just
kind of
great topic to bring up. In fact, because we're going to start seeing a lot of these, mold and microbial testing and stuff coming into the industry as something that we have to do and have to abide by. And I've been very, very anal about this from the beginning. And like going to some of these other states, especially, I don't know if you guys heard, but
you're anal about things?
Never. No. Come on. That's impossible.
I mean, just even going into Washington and hearing, a lot of the people in Washington that are making water hash, a lot of them are failing these mold and microbial tests.
I would imagine
already.
because I can imagine because those things, again, those machines are not made for that.
What I'm doing, I've been going into a lot of these labs and stuff like that, and not to put any particular person on blast because I'm seeing it everywhere. But these plastic washing machines that most of these labs are using, most of these companies are using, I mean, they're not even utilizing them correctly. One thing is that they're plastic and they're not food safe and yada, yada, yada. But in reality, I'm opening these things up when I get into somebody's lab and it's like, whoa, you haven't cleaned this thing since you bought it 2 years ago. Like, what are you guys doing? And there has to be these certain precautions to take when using any equipment in a lab setting when you're trying not to get any mold and microbial. Any kitchen setting. We're going to get into playing with a lot more H2O2 and taking into account certain steps to make sure that your machine and everything that you're using is completely sterilized before you use it each and every time. Because in reality, if you get some mold and microbial in your machine once or some E. coli once, it's very difficult to remove that. And there's certain steps you have to take to remove it, and it is possible.
Or if you're using a plastic washer, just buy a new one.
Yeah. I mean.
Well,
in the commercial industry right now, like you should, if you are using a plastic washing machine, no matter how much you clean it, you should be replacing it every month and a half.
Yeah, something like that.
100%.
Literally, because it's that stuff. You can already see it. Like it's already.
I go through about
it's stained.
150 of them a year.
150 washers a year, really?
Yeah, and that's not a joke. Like
I believe that.
And we have been designing our own stainless steel washing machine that is going to be easier to break down, easy to clean. Things of that nature.
I mean, it has to be a.
I'm just saying, if a washer can get a spin cycle, you can build in like a centrifuge.
Well, the good part is you basically need the worst washing machine in the world is the best hash making because you don't want it to be too aggressive. You know what I mean? You want it to be like, this sucks. And then you're like, oh, it makes great hash because it doesn't really work. Those things are like,
it doesn't work for clothes. Using
it can't work for
washing
clothes.
Machines for making hash. We have to create our own.
A hashing machine.
Hashing machine, exactly, yeah. And even, to get into it, like I've seen some large commercial grows in this last year. And they're not using washing machines in these large greenhouse grows and stuff like that. I mean, I'm seeing huge tea brewers, food grade tea brewers, and people are using all kinds of different agitation methods from air to, movement. There's all kinds of new things coming out.
Ultrasonic, you can go nuts.
Yeah, Murphy has the ice cream maker trick. You can't hear her because she's off mic.
Ice cream maker.
But
ice cream tech.
Ice cream tech. It's good because it keeps it cold. It has to agitate constantly. That's how you make ice cream.
No, I just.
So we did have our African buddy hit us up, right? And he was talking about hand rub, temple balls, or as he called pre-harvest hash, which is an interesting term for it. He had been down in India, I believe he said, for that harvest in a village that's what they did. They just hand rubbed. And his question was, is anyone doing it in the U.S.? Will anyone, that you know of? Is there a reason we don't do it?
I think one of the biggest reasons that we don't do the hand rub technique here in the U.S. is really just the strain in the environment, especially here in Colorado.
Yeah, it's
definitely almost impossible to actually, take up just, your standard Colorado strain and just rub the bud and get what that charis appearance that you're trying to attain. And a lot of it has to do with the humidity, and a lot of it has to do with those strains. Those strains that they're growing in Afghanistan and India and Morocco are made for charis. They're very, very oily strains.
So if we ran those here, that's the restriction, because I don't see that as.
I think it's the humid. I think
it's
the environment as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also the. These people have been doing it for so many generations, and it's like you kind of can imagine trying to. That's a real nice learning curve there with a guy just crushing buds, dirty hands. The combination is always a big problem, because it's always like you know about the contamination, but you don't really want to know about it. But when it's charis, you can kind of get over it. But when it's your friend down the road and he hands you a piece of hand rub that he made, it ain't gonna work. You don't want to know the person.
There's other ways to make a similar product here, and there are people in the U.S. doing similar things with pressing hash, by hand. One of them I'd like to, give props to is Frenchie. Frenchie's
the man. Yeah.
A long time.
We got to call her. We got to call. Oh, we lost her.
How to call her?
We had a caller. Call back.
We'll get our caller back. Sorry, Nick.
And then there's other, local people like Canna Hash here in Colorado.
Yeah,
that
that's
doing,
one person.
Some
and it's funny. I met him
styles.
at the lab, and it was. I was like, oh well, of course, because we're born in Europe, or he's born in Albania or something, or
he's Russian, but I
Russian, yeah, definitely not American. You know what I mean? So it's like he knows those flavors from. And that's the thing, is you also want to know what you're shooting for too. So if you've never smoked charis and you go out and rub some, jelly bean, it's not going to turn into charis. It's going to be like, wow, that tastes really weird and sharp, and what's all this hairs in there and stuff. That's the thing. That again, the contamination would be the reason that we wouldn't want to smoke it normally. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be our first choice.
Yet there's some people, like some of my Moroccan friends, they only want that, and they know that that's got some, some skin cells in it. And
for sure.
That's part of the flavor.
But
just call it DNA.
Yeah.
It's just
People
DNA.
like Frenchie's hash because of Frenchie's skin cells.
Yeah, Frenchie's motion is what makes great hash.
And some of that.
So we got a caller on. We got a caller now.
Hey man, it's Perkins.
Hey Perks, what's going down? Sorry about that. We have technical. Today's one of those crazy tech days.
Do you want to intro our caller, buddy?
We're good. This is Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction on the line. He's just landed in town for a gig tonight at the Ogden. We had Willie on there. He actually is out of the room talking to whoever. You know how he is.
I'm guessing Vinny.
He's talking to somebody outside.
Well, yeah, James is playing the Ogden at 9 p.m. and then Banyan, we're playing at midnight over at
Coyotes. Yep, we announced that also too. So it's like a double gig, and so of course. Perks being the hardest working guy in show business, and the nicest guy. I'd have to say the nicest guy in the rock and roll world for sure. So
it's definitely going to be a sativa night. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. So we had some stories. We got some stories earlier, which was awesome, and we knew that we knew we could have Willie by himself in a room and go off for 5 hours probably. So
that worked out just fine.
When you're coming on strong to mushrooms, the stories are really exciting.
Yeah, that'd be about right.
So, but yeah, think about it. Me and Willie met in '95, and the alumni for Banyan has been over 50 or 60 musicians, including Buckethead and Flea and John Frusciante, and Nels Cline, Mike Watt. But the consistent is me and Willie. And that's what's pretty exciting, is because no matter what we do, when we get on stage tonight, you have that familiar tribal and that psychedelic trumpet, and those are that's what brought down the walls of Jericho, trumpet and. So tonight we have the bass player from Jane's Addiction, Chris Chaney, and the great Fahid Hawk on guitar. So I'm really excited about Banyan and the Jane Show. Of course, we're doing Nothing Shocking in its entirety, which is. To play the songs in the right order and kind of catch that vibe.
It's
a
funny.
lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for us too.
Yeah, it's awesome because like a lot of people, you say that they're, I was like, I told at least 3 or 4 people in the last couple of days, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go see Jane's, and they're like, what? Like, no, yeah, like, come on, like, it's still, it can be possible, guys, and then
Don't give up on it.
And then like Jan's in town, so you'll be seeing him, and you'll be seeing him later. But he was like, what? No, Banyan's playing, rah. Like, I was like, no, he's doing 2 gigs. This guy works hard, come on.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I've been doing this, for years. If there's something to do after or before the gig, I've got the energy and the willpower to keep it going.
For sure,
Because, after a concert, I end up in my room all jazzed up for another 3 or 4 hours anyways. I might as well get behind the drum kit.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Last time we had you guys at the over at the Hood Lab, that was awesome. That was one of the. We didn't do that many live gigs there, but that was one of the best ones. Obviously,
that was
talent
with
wise.
me and Tony Franklin on bass, one of the greats. And the year is up, and I think it was a great success for music and art. And obviously, if you think about the progress we're making in the world of cannabis, it's only getting better, and it's getting more nationwide and worldwide. And that to me is hand in hand with the music and the art. Is letting that having that freedom to explore your brain and to get healthy and to treat ailments and pain and hunger problems. It's all there for us. And as a musician, weed has always been part of the scene, and it's nice to see it kind of spread away too.
Yeah, no, it's good to see like good weed getting kind of all over the place too. So it's not like you only can get good weed when you were in Cali or when you're in big city that you knew the right. Now it's kind of like there's definitely pockets everywhere that are all connecting. It's almost like little strip malls. How they were none when you were a kid, and now they stretch from one side of the state to the other, and you're like, how the hell these things? They all just connected at some point. It's almost like the weed scene too, where there was only weed at big stretches, and now they all in between are popping up better, little shops and stuff. And are you gonna partake in any kind of rec shops while you're here? Well,
I just got to town. I definitely want to grab some lunch and then probably go find some trouble.
There you go.
And then I think James is going to sound check down there at the Ogden this afternoon and start loosening it up and warming up the bones. So as long as I got my vaporizer and my drum set, I think I'm okay today.
You can start slow.
I think I'm going to be happy.
Awesome.
Tomorrow I fly out to Las Vegas. Jane's Addiction's playing 2 shows in Vegas. And it's also pretty loose out there, and there's some great smoke and some really good people kind of stirring some trouble up there, too. So
yeah. I just came back from 6 days.
Ryan's favorite town.
We just came back from 6 days in Vegas, which it loses its, how it loses its luster.
It's great now that we're traveling musicians. We don't have to worry about bringing stuff with us, and you get there, you're safe, it's quality.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, that's how we met in Amsterdam. That's how we met in Amsterdam back in the day was, via that same.
Yeah, landing in Denver is, it's just as exciting as landing in Amsterdam for a European to come here or an American to go there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a washout now.
Yeah.
And I'm really, to me, the actual spot where people get together and smoke, and somehow there's that conversation sparks on how great this is for the society of loosening up the belt and getting people the right medicine they need. So I'm just happy to be part of that, and
for sure.
And the music really brings people together. The last Banyan show out here, I'd never seen so much more smoke. I think it was the month that it was legalized. The whole room was smoked out, but it was a good time, and it wasn't dark. It was light,
sure.
And that's what I appreciate.
Cool. Well, thanks for calling in and being persistent on that one, just because we had to switch up the numbers and get all nuts.
Yeah, technical difficulties to the max.
Still pulled it
Yeah,
through.
well, it's a pleasure, man, and I can't wait to explore some of your shops here in the city. And
sure.
Thanks for having me. I hope to see you guys tonight.
You would definitely will. You definitely will.
Right on.
Thanks, Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction and Banyan on the line.
There you go. You can put that on your resume, Nick. Has appeared with.
There you go. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, man.
Big up.
All right. Peace.
So, you want to get down to some tech now?
Yeah.
So you showed me this cool tech, and I got to be honest. I didn't have anything good to press up. I just wanted to see how it worked, So I had some trim bin sift that I didn't care for, and it didn't clean at all. and then I had like grinder keef. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that it worked with both of them, and that trim bin sift looks like remarkably like shatter.
Yeah, trim bins have been killing it lately. I think one of the first people that I saw really, kill it with a product from the trim bin was Cash Tree Mason. In fact, I always got to give some mad props to Cash because he was actually the dude who first showed me the press tech, not necessarily with the flat iron. And granted, I've been pressing hash for 15 years now, so pressing hash is nothing new, but just achieving that shatter consistency. I think a lot of the kids, getting more into dabbing, want to be able to dab solventless easier, and this press tech was one of the coolest things, to happen in the new solventless industry, is because it teaches someone to be able to press the solventless into a more shatter-like consistency that's easier to dab.
And so go over like how Cash originally did it and how the tech's evolved since then.
I'm trying to remember the original way that Cash taught me. I feel like he was even just showing me with his fingers, with in between parchment paper. The parchment paper was the key, really to it. And since then, people have utilized, the Joel Hayland honey hole quartz tops and heated those up lightly and pressed, with the hash in between the parchment paper. I first started using a titanium tool, one of the flat-ended titanium dabbers from Happy Daddy, actually, and heating that up gently with the torch and pressing it. That still works for me just fine today. And then, really like advancing this tech is the amount of heat that you're using, Every strain and every type of different material is going to need a different heat to press it to the consistency that you're after. Certain strains that tend to have a little bit more of a waxier cuticle, a thicker waxy, outer edge of the trichome, basically, are going to need more heat to really get into that stable shatter consistency. And then oftentimes if you don't use enough heat,
certain strains just don't do it.
Yeah, certain strains won't do it. But in reality, I think I'm getting away from that. I think I can say, confidently that I can do it really with any strain. It's just a matter of how much heat.
Or the quality of the actual material off the strain.
Definitely. Quality
you got to be in that right range,
Yeah, quality definitely has a factor. But, certain strains like Blue Dream were really hard to press in the beginning for me. And then I've learned that, I just use a little bit more heat with that Blue Dream and I'm able to press it into a consistent shatter-like consistency. Now, I'm losing a little bit more terpenes with certain strains like that because we are having to use a little bit more heat to get that consistent appearance. But in reality, it's the same thing that goes with solvent extracts. Those super sappy strains that people want the shatter out of, like OG Kush and Sour Diesel, they're having to raise the heat slightly in their vacuum ovens for shatter to get that consistent shatter texture.
Right.
So the same thing kind of applies to all trichomes in reality.
Yeah, it's the same. It was the same as, literally, when I was doing all the lamies, it was the same. And the thing that was interesting about doing the laminates, and now I think it's almost could become a standard thing where you just use it to test more or less, because if you're, you can pull it out, but you can use such a small amount. You can run it through it, and you can lift it up and look at it after and see how much plant material is in there. Do a quick zip off, see if it actually is all shiny on both sides and it's chattery. So it was kind of interesting to watch because it was like the pieces that I was making back in the day that were the best were too good because of the laminators. If you had a cheap one, it would never have the low enough setting. You'd have to get the best laminator to have the lowest setting because it couldn't be ice cold, but it couldn't be even more than 100 degrees.
And the same type of thing goes with the flat irons.
Yeah,
in
so
reality.
I wanted to ask
so
you
the
which
super
flat irons
cheap
you're
flat
using.
iron goes too hot.
Yeah, right away.
And especially those real small travel ones, which really look cool, and like the hash makers are like, oh, cool, a travel one that'll fit in my pocket. Rad.
You have to have a super. It's all about that low variable setting on everything. I noticed, for making hash.
And so, a lot of these cheap, even you can go to Safeway right now and get a hair straightener for $5.99 and start pressing hash today. In reality, with those ones, I turn them on for a minute or two, but then I let them sit for another 2 to 5 minutes before I even use them.
So you turn them on, then turn them off, and let them cool.
Yeah, let them
and
cool
you have
down.
to figure that sweet spot and then
catch
them on the way down.
I think that's where I'm lucky these days is because I've been touching so many hash presses for so many years. I think my fingers are more accurate than any temperature gauge that I can use. We've been seeing, testing, the temperature of an ice water mixture before we put our material in, and most of these, digital temperature gauges and even the ones the
Laser.
kitchen ones, they're not calibrated correctly. Because in reality, to calibrate one of these correctly, you have to really have a lab setting. You can't just put one of these things into a bucket full of ice water anymore and expect to be 100% calibrated. And so, I'm lucky that my fingers, I feel like, have more calibration than most of these utensils, because I'll touch the flat iron every second until I know that it's right, exactly at that right temperature that I want to press that product at. Generally speaking, I'd say, that temperature that we're talking about when we're pressing hash, is going to range from anywhere from 120 degrees for like that super, super high quality that you're not really going to even need any type of heat for. You can just really do it in your hands. Right? Up to around 185 is really the highest I want to go for certain materials. And in reality, I try and stick between 150 and 165 for most things.
Yeah, it's funny. When you try to make all levels, because that's what I was also trying to do. Like, obviously with the top grade stuff, you could just run it through almost like literally about 100 degrees, 105, 110, and it would melt enough, almost melt too fast. If it went any higher, it would squirt out the sides, and that'd be it,
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole learning curve, I think, of the laminating hash thing that made it nobody wanted to do it, because it was like you had to first lose hundreds of dollars worth or euros or whatever worth of hash, because it would squirt out the side or it'd get on the rollers, and I'd be scraping it off the rollers and using it for some other thing, and I was like, another mistake, And it was the key was the having low temperature reverse, because if you didn't have reverse, you'd be like, it's gone, it's going in, it's going wrong, it's getting munched up. It was like watching it just go like crunch, 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 come out the other side, just like a mess. So it was a little bit more, throwing it in there, but at the same time, learning really quick, because at the same time, we would always figure it out, temperatures. You figure out how fast you'd have to go in. If you went in quickly on certain material, you could make it through. If you went too slow, it would heat up too much and just melt it all out.
And I think we had these same exact learning curves when, even 10 years ago, I was using a car jack to press my hash. Because in reality, when we started first using the car jack, we utilized an oven to heat this car jack up. It's all stainless steel, and it's cool that Murphy's in the building right now, because she's been around for a lot of this, with me teaching Darwin and stuff about the car jack, and Darwin pressing up pucks for years and years for the market. Before this market really became, compliant and all that, the gray area, Wild Wild West time, we were passing pucks around like nothing. 10 to 50 packs of hash pucks for sure. We're hitting those Broadway dispensaries through a small little circle of us. That's beside the point. But the pressing, via the jack puck is the same type of way. If you get it too hot, you're going to squirt that hash out the side, and it will kind of look like that shatter consistency that people are getting, from this pressing. But in reality, it was so much harder to collect all that and to create a uniform form that you were going to distribute.
And if you have the outside's dark and the inside's different color, and everybody's all what the heck?
You learn to really dial in those variables as far as the temperature for each individual type of trichome that you're pressing.
It's harder with water hash though too, because the water hash you have that all different sort of levels of water that could be possibly still in there, and if it is, it'll just fall apart after it loses its integrity. Like
definitely, that's one of the most important things. Like back in the day, not to put anybody particular on blast once again, but there were people that taught.
No, we're putting people on blast.
Someone on
we're putting people on blast.
All right. I'm going to put someone on blast. Like in all reality, because I learned from a lot of people. I'd say one of the main people that has to do with teaching a poor tech to Northern California and creating a lot of the moldy hash that came out of Humboldt County is Mark. I have mad respect for Bubble Man and a lot that he's done, but he's learned so many more techs in the last 5 years from our new generation, because he was teaching people to press the moisture out of these patties,
which presses it in as well.
Yeah, oftentimes. So a lot of these hashes that we were seeing for years and years coming out of Northern California was this black, mildewy smelling, pliable hash that often did have mold and microbes and things of that nature. And that was due to the fact that we were pressing water into it. And so nowadays, we really try and preach to people to make sure you remove all the water. You're sieving, you're planing, you're creating a lot more surface area before you even think about pressing.
And now Bubble Man's all about that too. He even uses cardboard as a desiccant.
Well, Nowadays, so even
he's switched
2
on
years,
that.
3 years ago, he was talking about using cardboard. Now he's actually going away from that. Now he's like, you see his pictures, and he's putting unbleached parchment paper on top of his cardboard, like we've taught. Because in reality, some of these super sticky strains, there's nothing you can do to grade it on cardboard and not remove some of that cardboard with you. You know, he was always telling you, oh, there's certain ways if you remove enough water before you grade it onto the cardboard, you won't have any issues. That's creating a variable that we don't want to deal with right now. Why use the cardboard, period? Why not use something like unbleached parchment paper? And so that's where the industry's going, you know? And that's not to say I didn't learn a lot from Mark in the beginning. And I don't think I think that he would agree that he's learning a lot from us today. Same goes for Mila. I learned so much from Mila back in the day, from oral tradition. I mean, she taught me the rinsing trick that I still teach today and still utilize today, that was able to turn my Northern California hash every single time into something melty. That rinsing trick that Mila taught me orally, I owe her all the world for that. Speaking of, we're real close to Mila's 70th birthday, so I got to give a big shout out to Mila. I'm going to be hosting and DJing her 70th birthday at the Melkweg in Amsterdam this year.
Oh, perfect.
So that's coming up soon. Definitely much love to Mila. But, the same goes for Mila. We'll get on stage together. We've done numerous demonstrations on stage in Amsterdam and throughout the U.S., and I'll always give her props, for teaching me originally and teaching me all these tricks. And then she'll get on the mic and say, you know what, and we got to give Nikki T so many props for teaching me fresh frozen and teaching me all these other variables to control. And I owe a lot of that to the regulations. A lot of people hate regulations and stuff, but it's allowed me to be in a real scientific lab where I'm able to control these variables that people in Northern California and people in Europe were not able to control before, because they didn't have that protection to put all the money into humidity and temperature control that we have today in the regulated environment.
Or to order necessarily from the sort of industrial suppliers that you need to order from to get the gear that you need to do it. You can't.
Definitely. And, so many new ancillary products are coming out because these industrial suppliers are feeling safe enough to put these products into a market that's not going to get shut down immediately like it was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, you'll see. I mean, I'm sure within
obviously later and later.
I'm sure within the next couple of years too that the big suppliers like Sunlight Systems and Hydrofarm and those guys are going to finally realize like they can now breathe easy and relax. It's
market towards us.
It's actually a market of exactly.
AG and things.
Yeah, and don't market so obviously to us, but not. You know what I mean? In such a stupid way. Like, okay, I can't say this, but I'll make it sound so much like it, and then it just sounds stupid at that point. It's like, can you just answer my question? Like, is this good for the? Well,
if you're trying to grow tomatoes,
if your tomatoes are going to be really juicy, that doesn't help me. That doesn't really help us what we want to know. So I think that'll blow the market up, because then all these people will come out of the woodwork who are real growers, who have good products, who have always been shut down whenever they try to come to market, because they're just thinking simple, like it's skunk skunk whatever, and they're like, nah, can't use it, or it's got whatever thing that they don't want to think outside the box and call it, GS115 or whatever they're going to call it. Stinky buds or whatever, and then they're never going to go to market because no one's going to want to take it, because all the shops will be like, nope, sorry. But I think all that's going to change soon, and then that's going to make all these markets are going to grow fast. Well,
there's definitely already like very weed specific names in the shop starting to get in.
But I mean, Advanced got thrown out of all the shows because of their Cushy Kush. When they came out with that, they weren't allowed to be in any shows from that point on.
And you know what? That's funny, because Advanced was one of the first people to come out with any product line that mentioned Kush.
Yeah.
And as a kid that smoked OG, I was instantly, attracted to
that
something that said
you?
Cushy Kush.
Really?
I was like, fuck yeah, this is going to make my shit taste cushier.
It's going to be cushier.
I never used it, but, I saw it, and it was in my spectrum because of that name.
It was in your radar. You were like, I could actually spend money on that. Well, I wouldn't. I'm not a very big Advanced fan just because they had so many products. That was my biggest.
I'm super stoked now. I don't use any bottled nutrients. I'm fucking loving life.
Yeah, you're all TLO.
Finally.
I just feed water. It's so much easier to teach everyone that, I'm traveling so much right now. So when I go out of town, it's like, you don't have to follow this crazy formula. Just feed my shit water.
Give it water.
Make sure they're
wet.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm glad everyone's coming around, and that's a good segue to shout out some of our sponsors. Let's shout out Build a Soil for providing the best organic amendments, knowledge, and some great technique videos. Just check out buildasoil.com.
And after we hit our 1,000 show, or 1,000 subscribers, which will be probably after this show.
Yeah, we're at 900 subscribers right now, guys. I told you guys if we had 1,000,
now, of course, once we put out the
classes.
names of all the talent in the room.
I got to big up some of the people that I'm using in my garden as well, if you guys don't mind. But
well, let us big up ours first, and then you can big up yours. We'll let you big yours up.
I thought
that was just one.
Paid sponsor.
Just build a soil.
A few.
Definitely have to big ups Way to Grow, of course. WayToGrow.net for more information. Almost 7 locations.
Yeah.
All over Colorado. It's Black Friday all month, and goddamn it, go in there and say Adam Dunn Show, and they'll just pretty much throw money at you. If you go into any Way to Grow store,
and now they have a concentration corner there.
Oh,
concentrate corner, I guess they're calling it, right? Is that what it's called? Something like that.
Yeah, it's not. They didn't go with concentration camp, which is the right move.
That's what I would.
That's what Adam would call it if he was running it.
That was it.
But they didn't call it that.
Concentration corner is almost as bad, right?
No, sort of, but it's legit. Go, you can get all your concentrate gear at Way to Grow.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one.
Who else do we got? Well, let's see.
Well, we had Build a Soil and we had Nectar, of course.
Well,
maybe,
of course,
maybe that's
Nectar.
why I butted in, just because you guys were slacking.
Yeah,
you know?
it's technical difficulties throw us
Show your
off.
sponsor some love, bro.
Of course, we got a big shout out, Nectar for the Gods. And we do have a Nectar for the Gods gift package going out soon to the winner.
Next week we're going to be doing a.
Ryan's just been sitting in his chair, giving me this weird look all show, like he wants to get on the mic and say something, but he's just sitting there. He's like, I haven't been in the studio for a month and a half.
Thank you, Willie, for showing up. Thanks for helping us out. What's up now?
Well, nothing's up now.
Ryan doesn't want to be on the show anymore. Ryan doesn't want to be on the show anymore.
Ryan's dying.
I'm not dying.
Ryan's dying.
No.
All right, Ryan, go have your Ebola. We'll continue shouting out Nectar for the Gods. Check out their organic nutrient line at organsonly.com. They definitely have a unique approach to growing calcium heavy.
What? Kid, you might have to go to the corner for a minute.
Are we doing sponsor shout-outs, or you be rating Ryan, or we're doing both? We'll do both. We'll be efficient. We'll do both.
The sponsors
We'll do
probably
both.
fucking love it.
Shout-outs are.
Yeah.
Of course, you got to shout out Guayaquil, your Mate sponsor, holding us down and giving me energy to talk over Adam, be rating Ryan.
Dabweiser for
hooking it up with the nails and Dome. Our new sponsor, Dark Horse Genetics. Jason from last week's show just came on as a sponsor earlier this morning.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
and
I left town for 1 week, and all of a sudden we got a new sponsor.
Things are going good.
Wow, how does that work?
You know, it's like a key, Adam.
It's like a key.
It's like a key.
Yes.
You turn it a bunch of times,
and then
that's that. That's
that was it.
That was pretty much it. So,
that's how it went, I think.
So
you have to listen to the last episode.
Nick, please, by all means, shout out your sponsors now.
Oh no, they're not even sponsors. They're just they're family companies that I like to show love to, because they've shown me love, and in return, I show them love, and it just spreads. It keeps that family system alive, and in all reality, I really only show love to the people that are, it's benefiting, me, and it's stuff that I agree with.
So does that mean you're showing love to the Adam Dunn Show when we're obviously you're showing love to these other people when you're here?
Oh, of course, much love.
Are you our new sponsor?
Yeah,
every time.
I know we have this. We have a multi.
I'm hoping soon I'll be in a position to be a sponsor. Right
That's
now,
good.
I love the sponsors that support me.
All right, there you go.
But I got to big up Dragonfly Earth Medicine for a lot of the nutrient line that they're letting me use right now. It's all homemade in California.
Nice.
It's a family, that has been supporting me, and I definitely like to support them. I got to give a shout out to Colin from Sensi Size Soil. Some of the best hash I saw last year was from Colin, and I just really, really liked the terpene profile on it. I liked what he was getting out of the extract, and so I wanted to play with what he was using. And he was just using a super soil, and these last 6 months I've been playing with it and just loving the results. I also have to give a big shout out to Ambesa Organic. Good buddy Rich is killing it with his dry nutrient formula as well. So I've been kind of using a combination of the Sensi Size Super Soil with the Dragonfly Earth Medicine and Ambesa Organic, and really no bottled nutrients, all powders, and just loving life. Super
Not
simple.
paying for any water.
Yeah,
because that's whenever you're buying anything in a bottle, they take a powder, put water in it, put it in a bottle, and then you pay for the water to a large degree, and the shipping weight on that.
95% water most of the time. Yeah. Diluted, so, etc. But yeah, I'm just loving all the results that I'm getting. My terpene profile is amazing, and then all this is also due to the help from the new lights that I'm using, the new ceramic metal highlights from Growable distributors. They're just awesome.
We're gonna get them on for sure.
Absolutely, just amazing so far. barely any heat is coming off of these bulbs. I'm so far producing at over the amount that I would produce off of a 600 watt HPS. I'm almost reaching the same amount I'd be hitting on a 1,000 watt HPS. I won't have any definitive data until I've run 3 rounds. That's what I always say. I like to run 3 rounds with the new product and control my variables. But so far, I'm really, really loving these new lights.
Right on.
They're fun to work under too. That spectrum, just because it's nice and easy to under your eyes. It doesn't make you actually see what you got.
They're bright though. They're pretty.
They're hella
super bright for the little bulbs.
You don't want to stare at them, that's for
yeah,
sure. But you can still work
them.
under them. You know,
Definitely.
I mean, it definitely hurt your eyes on the looking at the plants as much, because definitely with sodiums are just so muddy. Everything's so muddy.
We're definitely going to have a caller in here any minute now, so Chris, keep an eye out for that. I want to take a moment to shout out some of our YouTube listeners and talk a little bit about the sour diesel videos. Someone launched a campaign against our sour diesel history videos. Someone wants to censor the truth, is what I believe, because it's only those 2 videos that have been flagged and now pulled from YouTube.
Wait, which ones?
The 2 sour D history of sour D.
And there's
episodes.
no music on those. So
No music on them, so it wasn't, and it didn't say it was a music rights thing. So, guys, the YouTube videos may or may not be coming back, but the audio is always going to be available at adamdunnshow.com/podcast.
So somebody flagged.
Someone flagged them, they reviewed them, they got pulled, but it was only those 2 videos, and I don't know, there's nothing we did in those videos that we didn't do in any other videos except talk about the history of sour.
Well, it makes me wonder if I just flagged a random video then, and then they look at.
I feel like if you just do it once, it doesn't happen. I feel like this was probably someone had to do it a couple times.
Yeah, we were saying it was Cannabis Illuminati. Is like,
yeah, the Weed Illuminati's out for us. But our YouTube army, our denizens on YouTube are holding it down. And I want to shout out some of the people who have been doing the thing on YouTube.
Nice.
Shout out Siobhan McCory, new listener, been holding it down. Brody Mac in the UK, definitely been holding it down. MLH Sage, you got a lot of really good info, man, and we definitely want to talk to you quite a bit more. Of course, Matanuska High up in Alaska.
Yeah, we got our Alaskan. I actually had a friend of mine contacted me, old friend, and she's like, "Oh, I'm up in Alaska." And I was like, "Nice, we need to give her a call."
Yeah, Matanuska, we're going to probably hook you up with a buddy of ours. Who else has been talking? I'm High Riot now is a new listener.
We got a caller now?
Yeah, we got our next guest on the line. So we just want to shout out all you YouTube listeners. Everyone, please get with us on social media. It's as things change rapidly, videos get pulled, new stuff gets posted. Shows like today's are not broadcast live. That's where we're putting it all out there. And you guys are going to get all mad and yell at us and say, "Oh, but the live stream was screwed up." Yeah, but we tried to tell you, but you guys aren't our friends on Facebook. I don't know any other way to tell you. We're on Instagram, and we will definitely follow you back if you follow us, but we don't post much. But I'll definitely look at your posts.
Yeah.
So
we'll post more.
We'll post more.
Well, I mean,
the kids,
the
healthy.
back.
Kids
So.
back. Yeah, come on.
He's
kid.
done with his
Well,
first
I have,
harvest.
and I have Instagram.
Instagram's for
now on
kids.
my
It's for
phone.
kids.
Yeah, with Kyle's name. I don't know why you stole
Dude,
Kyle's
it was
name.
so good. It's such a good name. I had to take it. It's perfect.
The Ghost OG
Ghost
is
OG.
Kyle's gaming name.
It's just
Let's
a
give a
cool
big
name.
shout out to Kyle,
This
who
is
held
the
it
Ghost
down.
OG or?
No.
I think I see like 3 or 4 Ghost OGs on my Instagram.
I mean,
Trying to figure out who they are.
there's so many of them, dude. But it's a good name.
One of them.
Well, yeah, but you can't
my good
just
friend
steal
Joe.
it.
Yeah.
You can do whatever the fuck
California,
I want.
we've done
It's
some pretty
Instagram.
sweet some collabs with, but
All
I don't
right.
know
What
who
are we
the real
shouting out
Ghost
Kyle
is.
for?
Yeah, let's shout out Kyle for World of Warcraft just launched, and Kyle held it down and was in the top 1% worldwide of World of Warcraft
Ooh,
players.
top 1%.
That's pretty fucking sick if you ask me.
He drinks a lot of Red Bull.
Yeah, I think he drinks a lot of the sugar-free.
Yeah, I
light
got him
blue
onto that.
rock stars.
Yeah, that's what he's into. I picked it up
and,
once.
and apple skull.
All right, I believe we have our caller on the line. Mike, do we have you on the line?
I am here. How's it going, guys?
What's going on, brother? So that's Mike from the Sift Wizard. And I always like to talk about dry sift whenever we talk about water hash because it's like the perfect counterpart.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I figure, everyone's making all forms of different hash. You might as well have the dry sift in your arsenal as well. Don't limit it to just one thing. I like to have an array. I'm sure lots of other people do too.
So how long have you been making dry sift? And tell us about the Sift Wizard, what makes it special. Definitely, I haven't used it personally. Hopefully we'll remedy that when we talk after the show. But I definitely have been getting a lot of feedback. When I posted You Were Beyond, tons of people posted on my Facebook talking about their experience with the kit. Generally very, very, very good. So tell us more.
Okay. We figured it out about 2003, actually, here in Northern California. We were messing around one day, putting 1 screen, 2 screens, 3 screens, 4 screens, just all kinds of random just messing around, and we kind of figured this one out. And basically what happens is the capitate stalks, if you can separate them long and whole because they're slender, you can get them to fall sideways and get caught on the bottom screen. And the little round heads, because they're more dense, obviously, they find their way through. And it seemed to us like everywhere we looked, people were using shaker tables, or they were trying to shake their things or vibrate it with ultrasonic motors. And our kit works basically by not doing any of that. By not shaking it or you're not taking all of the contaminant and dumping it into your pile below. So by being careful and moving the bottom screen over to the side and then tapping it down, you're separating a lot of the stalks and green matter that fall down and get caught, as opposed to dumping it down into your fine stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like if you sweep your stairs and you go from the wrong way, you're like going to make it. You're like oh yeah, how many? If you sweep from the top to the bottom, it's like it's getting you're kind of collecting them through every single screen. But obviously there's screens in between. But you can see like how it by the time it gets to the bottom, you've got a whole bunch of different random shaped things, and by having those screens in between, you actually clean it all up and separate them.
Yeah, and the cool thing with this is we figured out, a lot of people over the years, we kept it kind of to ourselves because we hadn't seen it anywhere else, and we didn't really want to give it up. You figure out your little secrets, you want to kind of hang on to them for a little while. But we've got everybody teaching, the carding method, which, was great for a long time, and it still has its place for sure. But it was kind of a long, drawn-out process, and it took a long time to get it down to that 90%, 95%, or even higher percentage of resin heads.
And for people who aren't familiar with dry sift terminology, because we definitely do have listeners from all over and listeners in places where they don't even make dry sift, but the carding method is where you would sort of separate your what you think are mostly resin glands, trichomes, and then you would sort of like painstakingly rake them over a screen for hours and hours very gently with a card to make it so just the heads went through.
Right. It's kind of like the water bag method. You have progressively finer and finer screens, basically, that you go through. And as you take it and you gently card it around one screen, some of the contaminant gets left on top. You remove that one. And then you go to the next screen and you kind of card it through another mesh, and so on and so on. And eventually you can get it down to very, very clean heads. But, as I said, it's kind of a long process. It takes some time. And with our method, it really helps get you over 90% almost every time in a matter of seconds.
So what makes the difference between your method and
the big difference in the method is that we figured out exactly what mesh sizes to separate the whole long capitate stalks from the head. So under a microscope, when you look at the bottom screen, what's happening is the whole capitate stalks are falling down and sideways like a leaf would in the air, and it's getting caught sideways, like a bunch of toothpicks. If you were to throw them out, they get caught across each other and so on and so forth.
I see.
Well, by not grinding up your product or mushing it or carding it, you're not breaking down those whole capitate stalks. And if you look at it under a microscope, you can see they're long and slender. Once you start breaking those down, they're going to go through more of the meshes. So you got to keep cleaning it and cleaning it. By allowing them to fall sideways intact, and then move it to the side, you're able to separate it almost instantly.
So how do you get them? How do you get them to fall sideways? It's just you drop it and gravity does the work, pretty much.
It's gravity. The two-stack screen. There's two screens in the main setup. All you do is you take your trim or your little buds and you break it up and you just gently scuff it across the top screen. And by not bumping the setup, you gently lift the top screen off. And what's caught on that bottom screen is basically mostly contaminant. So then you take that bottom screen, you slide it over to the side, and then you tap the mesh down. So what has fallen through naturally, just in a few seconds, is like 90% heads. And what you tap down on the bottom screen, there's a lot of contaminant. And if you look at it under a microscope, it's night and day.
Yeah.
You're talking 95% heads versus 50% or less heads.
It's kind of the opposite. It's the way you have to think as a hash maker. Is you're kind of like reversal. You have to kind of like think, I want to get out all the crap, and then I'll be left with the best stuff. As compared to most people think they're going to just knock off all the best stuff right away, and it's going to be magically perfect by itself. And it's like, no, it actually has to be. You got to get out the highs and the lows, and catch what's like right in the sweet spot. You know what I mean? And then every strain has its own sweet spot. Some can be a little higher on that sweet spot with smaller glands, and some can be lower with bigger glands. You know.
I like how
Right.
I like how Mike's dialing in the microns for his specific process, because that's kind of similar thing to what we did with the essential bags. It really does make a difference, that size of screen, that size of mesh that you're using to collect.
And the consistency of the mesh. I guess I got to take a moment to acknowledge Strain Man, who made that post recently. He bought some cheap Chinese bags off eBay. I showed him how to make hash. He was into it. Got real into it. Figured he'd buy his own gear. Bought some cheap Chinese bags to start off, and found out that two of them just weren't. He didn't get hash patties in two of the bags.
Yeah, there's a
looks at them under the scope, and lo and behold, those holes are rectangular, not square, and they're with a micrometer. He could tell that they weren't even the right size they were supposed to be.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of times there's insides and outside measurements on those, and that's what people don't really realize. So you have to make sure you're getting the right measurement, because they might be be giving you the outside of every strand, and that's not what you want.
And as Strain Man mentioned, like to really get that real micron measurement, you're going to have to laser cut these mesh, and that's just too expensive for us to do for this
Unless
process.
you're making it for not for a commercial product, right? But if you're a hash producing company, getting stainless steel screens cut definitely makes sense.
Sure.
But so Mike, let's go back to you, man. What on your screens? Do you use a special material? Where do you source it from? Or where are they made?
The company actually is an Italian company, so I guess it's high-end. It's like the Ferrari of mesh, right? But it's made by a company called Sati, and I had my own sizes made through them. It's a monofilament polyester mesh. It's real high quality. I've been using the same set for like almost 12 years now, and it's basically like it was the day that I got it. As long as you take care of them, they're going to last you forever. They're not going to fray or cut or, anything like that. A little bit of cleaning, a little bit of isopropyl alcohol once a month, it's all good to go.
Right on. So
yeah, you got to keep them clean. That's one thing. If you work with them and leave them up there and they get all crusty, and then you go back and try to clean them later, it's definitely not so
No, you
easy.
got to clean them when you're done working.
It's like literally
Always.
it's almost like having a cast iron skillet and not like, I'll clean it later. You know what I mean? No, you got to clean that shit now while it's still warm. It'll actually clean out in 5 seconds. You know what I mean?
Even just answered that question for Strain Man or someone recently.
What's that? How frequent?
Clean them immediately.
Maintenance.
That's the last step of the process. The last step isn't.
Well, it's one of the most important steps to my process, and I believe probably even for Mike over here. Cleaning takes up at least half the time for my hash process. From the beginning where I sterilize and clean my lab, to make sure that before I even go to make hash, it's clean, and then afterwards cleaning all the the products, from the machines to the bags and everything else, the floors, your freezer, making sure your freezers are lined,
your phone, that's all
sterile.
covered in resin.
Sterile.
That's one of the main things that drew me to dry sift initially, was how easy and quick it is. I mean, this process that I do, it only takes 10 to 15 seconds at a time, and you get that purity. And you can do a bunch of handfuls in 5-10 minutes, and you get yourself a couple of grams of very high grade dabbable full melt dry sift.
Yeah.
No chemicals, no water, no nothing. And you put your screens back in the corner in your closet, and you're done. There's no mess. You wipe it up, and that's it.
The thing about it is, it makes sense on a personal scale, a lot of sense.
Totally.
On a commercial scale,
it's tough. Well, commercially, you have to think differently
because the yield's not the same, right?
No.
How much bud do you have to go through?
You would go mechanical if probably at a certain. If once you get beyond, when you're trying to run 100 pounds in a day, you're not going to want to do that by hand. It's going to be semi-mechanical, separate. You'd be like running across barrel screens or.
It's tough to do that much on this kind of a screen setup. I've got 3-foot screens, 30 by 36 inch, that you can get like 3 or 4 people around. But I mean, on a standard 20 by 24 setup, I can get through, a pound or two of good trim in, a couple, 3 hours, which is probably still going to be quicker than your normal bubble session.
And what are you going to yield off that in terms of how much sift will come through?
Top 2 to
3%. People are generally seeing about 5-10% total, and that's running the trim 2 to 3 times. It's not going to yield anything like oil or ice wax, because you got to be a little bit more gentle. It's more for a high-end connoisseur type smoke, It does yield pretty good for dry sift, though, considering the quality that you're getting. People are kind of shocked how much they're actually getting because they don't have to sit there and clean it, and watch their pile get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, that's the worst. That's the worst part
whatever
about
they
cleaning.
get, it's always going to be high quality. And it's done.
Yeah,
So you got
that was what held people back in Amsterdam always, was that like they just wanted to see weight, and so you'd show them like, well, actually this is not clean yet. Now I have to clean it, and then you'd take out 60%, sometimes more, you know what I mean? And they'd be like, what is going on here? And I'm like, well, I have to keep cleaning it. It's not ready yet. It's still like talcum powdery, you know what I mean? It's still got that vibe.
And, I'm sure you've seen pictures on either my Facebook or my Instagram. Most of those are other people. Like, they usually send me their first tries. Like, hey, this is what I did on my first attempt. That's most of what's on there. Most of that is not mine. That's just what the kit does. And that's all over the country, all over the world. That's all different climates, conditions, people with different materials. So it's kind of cool for me to see it being replicated all over the place in different conditions with different strains and, different variables all over the place. It's kind of universal. It's worked out really well.
It's cool, too, and often so much with almost everything in cannabis, but definitely everything in hash, and it's something Adam says all the time. There's, like, nothing new under the sun. Like, everything is an old technique. I remember Scott from Rare Dankness telling me that the dankest hash he'd ever made was made by someone with a silk scarf and a tambourine who just dropped it on top. And that's, that's...
Yeah, well, like back the first thing I did was pantyhose and, stretched them out and did that.
Mason jars.
Yeah, and from all, and it goes back, like something that simple, like silk and a ring.
Yeah.
People have been doing that. People have been making hash for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and the technique doesn't really enter a whole new realm usually. It's just a more refined or rediscovery.
It's fun when you have that aha moment when you're making it and you actually have enough product to make something substantial, and you actually got like a half a pound or a pound of, still dirty, but still like that's a lot of hash, and you realize quickly that you only want to smoke about the top 3-4% of that stuff, you know what I mean? You don't even want the rest. But
I actually have a question for Mike, if you don't mind. You mentioned not having any water in the dry sift. I've also been seeing a lot of people dry sifting fresh frozen material. Are you having to, and or do you have experience, but are you having to still let that product dry if you're sifting fresh frozen material?
I think I know who you're talking about, and it came out incredible. You're right. I tried it once before in a walk-in freezer, and I didn't have anywhere near the same results, and I had dried it previously. I have not tried it with fresh frozen, like people are doing for their ice wax. I think that's how it was done this time, which is crazy.
Yeah, I played with it, and I've made some definite fire with fresh frozen dry sieve. I just thought that there was definitely like a curing / drying process to go along with it afterwards, just like you would, fresh buds that you're drying, just like you would with fresh frozen material, etc. It takes longer to dry than my dry material.
Yeah, I think the person that I saw was using sublimation to get the moisture out, or some type of other process. I'm not sure if they were just drying it, but I think, if you were to do it without that, you'd probably definitely have to dry it out like you would, microplane out onto a large surface and let it dry out loose.
I see that as the next little echelon here, with, the live resin and the fresh frozen water hash. I mean, I want to see a lot more fresh frozen dry sieve.
All
That's
right.
what I want to
Well, I'll play with my freeze dryer and some fucking
yeah,
liquid
it's
nitrogen.
getting crazy, and it's cool now because people are able to have this kit, and it's an easy way. Do you have dry sift or dry trim or wet trim? It's all kind of, now you have the tools. Now everyone's just going to go play ball and have fun, which is cool. So,
and I think there's potentially like when you bring pressing in, like pressing a little dry sift along with a little water hash might give you a fuller terpene profile. Cannabinoids
the
might
dry would add actually
more terps.
The right dry would add the terps back.
Right,
into
that's what I'm saying. You could supplement
definitely
the terps with dry sift.
Well,
I think there's a lot of cool possibilities.
It might help also
mixing
too
and
for
matching.
consistency, just because, like we were talking about earlier, pressing water hash is always tricky when it comes to the water level that's still in the product, where you live, what humidity, like where if it moves from high humidity to low humidity or the reverse. Does it just turn into like nothing again? Like loses all of its integrity, That's what I don't like. But with dry sieve, you can keep it for 20 years, and that shit'll stay perfect. I
got some 8-year-old dry sieve in my freezer right now.
So
that's awesome.
I want Mike to weigh in and Nick to weigh in also. Obviously, Nick, you're in favor or not opposed to pressing hash.
It depends. there's so many variables in cannabis in general, I guess I would start with like one of the first things I'm seeing is, some of these new guys are actually pressing it and putting it on the shelf that way. And in reality, pressing it like in this style with this type of heat, and the amount of drying times and yada, 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 it's not really, I'm not seeing a shelf stable product when people are pressing it this thin and putting it on the shelf as, solventless shatter or pressed product. I'd rather, teach people, process it properly, dry it properly, sell it, and teach people how to press it themselves right before they dab. I think you can retain a lot more terpenes that way. There's also the old, theory that if you press it, you can retain those terpenes longer. So I think there's certain types of trichomes and certain types of pressing that will retain terpenes, and then there's certain types, with a lot of these. Strains that just have these crazy volatile terpenes. If you press it, you're
losing. You're gonna lose some.
They're gonna butter up, or something like that. They'll be lost to the air.
Just evaporate in general. But yeah, that's the thing. Is real traditional hash is you do it on the side. You do it like right there, like
right before you smoke. That's it's like breaking up your bud. You press your hash.
You
right?
sit there and you roll your bud, or you roll your hash, and you just kind of work it for a little while. And then you see, like, people who are traditionalists in Europe, they don't smoke it, never take it right off the piece. They'll roll it for a while, work little snakes out of it, and make it burn slower, bring the flavors out.
Add some skin to it.
Add a little skin, little DNA, exactly. But it's also the heat and the friction of your hands is activating it. And that's the whole thing about cannabis is when it's activated, it works better. So if you smoke just raw, like powder the way plenty of us do, to them, that's like, ooh, that's not finished yet. You didn't do the final process, So the real final process would be, even if it's just a self-pressing it in your hand, when you do it on big scale, it's pretty much for smuggling purposes only, and they wouldn't traditionally in home do it. They just have it, loose, and people would just work it as they work it, And that's how I would
smoke your own skin rather than your homie's
skin.
Right?
Your own skin, and also your own skin, and also just like to have it as fresh as possible, and release those terps.
But I definitely, I prefer to press before smoking. I think that.
Yeah, I think
I don't like smoking loose keef.
When I did the Trichome Challenge, it was always with loose keef on purpose to make people cough their fucking brains out. That was the idea. It was like, well, actually, it's not the way you normally smoke it, but go for it. And it tasted awesome on the way in, but it would grab you and expand so heavy, and then just tear people up. So, but it was part of the deal. I was filming them, and I wanted them to be suffering as much as possible.
Ryan's having a terrible time over there.
I can't. I'm not gonna.
What?
Our only operating client right now just seriously drives me up a fucking wall.
Ryan, not on the radio.
What is going on?
You shouldn't have
here?
even chimed in. Are you here or are you at work?
I'm everywhere right now. But
Luckily, you have like 9 jobs, so we don't know who you're talking about.
Yes, I have like 9 jobs, but I'm not. But we're dealing with issues.
Issues. Jeez. Are you just listening to some other thing on headphones?
Yeah, exactly. What? Do you have different headphones?
Is there a white reggae on your
headphones?
You're rocking out way too hard over there.
Right on. Well, Mike, we want to thank you definitely for being on, brother. Are you? But before you go,
give us all
before
the
you
details,
go, give us your details for people who want to contact you and find out more. And we definitely, what do you think about pressing? My phone just died too, which stinks. So.
Thanks for having me, guys. I do want to touch a little bit on what Nick was saying too, because for years, probably about the first 10 years, I actually didn't press anything for long-term storage myself. I kept it loose, all of my dry sift. And I wouldn't even press it before I smoked it. People would, I've heard stories, if you smoke the loose resin, you'll go nuts.
That's a little extreme.
I definitely like pressing it now, though. I've definitely started doing that right before I smoke it. It just, like you said, the terpenes, it tastes better. It seems to go down smoother. Whatever happens, I'm all for it. So I've kind of come around to that as well, and I definitely like that method.
Do you want us to should we throw out like 2 simple techniques for because there's really such the basic ones like hot water bottle technique and maybe Moroccan or the rolled like the cooking technique or something. Should we give everybody
do it? Don't. It's your show, dude. Don't ask.
I'm just asking. I want to see if anybody wants to give any.
You teach
techniques.
them, Adam.
I'll give you.
You're the hash. You're in hashish.
This is the key of. Yeah, I'm in the book actually. I'm in the book with Mila. By the way,
which one?
Hashish.
Of course.
Oh, nice.
Clark's,
Of
yeah.
course, got to be in that, right? But no, in general,
And that's where they called him the
Big up Rod
epicenter of the
Clark.
cannabis
and the
universe.
reality of hash making in general is that it's such a simple idea. It's where you need to heat it up to a certain point, not too hot, not too cool. You need to press it for a certain amount of time. Definitely longer is usually better because a lot of people tend to go too quick and they don't let it do its thing. You leave it for a while.
Well, they'll
and
pull the parchment off while the
still
resin's
warm.
still warm.
Still
yeah, you
gooey.
can't
And
do
that's
that.
when it kind of will instantly
Can't do
break
that.
heads.
Yeah, there's just like basic simple rules, and that's the nice part about it is you can get creative, and that's how like all these new techniques will pop up. Is everybody will literally have that epiphany like I did and sit there and go, well, that's heat, that's pressure, that'll work. And there's a lot of other industry stuff because we're going to start thinking bigger and more industrial, and people are going to start thinking commercial, and you're going to see some interesting new approaches to this because it's a malleable product, that's really easy to work with. And then the other technique that I was going to say, two techniques.
Well, you didn't even, you didn't give
two
any
techniques
yet.
I was going to say, which is the simplest thing is just like hot water in a wine bottle with your like parchment paper, cellophane. If you're really desperate, you can use a tobacco cellophane. It's the right cellophane. It's just the wrong product because it's got the wrong smell and vibe. So I wouldn't recommend that if you don't have to. But I've seen plenty of people do it. Just take it in, slap it in. And I've seen people, you're just rolling a bottle hot across it multiple times, flip it, try to get it as equal as possible. I've seen people use door jams, warm it up a little bit, throw it in a door jam.
People put it in
sole
their
of your
shoe, yeah.
shoe. It gets pretty basic. It gets pretty rudimentary. But the more simple way, like that was kind of like the next sort of level up, which was kind of like French newspaper technique or kind of the classic one on stovetop would be 3 layers of newspaper where you would use the first layer being a dry one around the product, which would be wrapped in cellophane. And cellophane, the important part of it, and the part that most people don't realize is it's a natural cellophane is what you're looking for, not a plastic synthetic one, because the plastic ones will stick to your product and leave your product kind of dull. And the natural stuff is leaves it shiny, which we're all looking for, the nice shiny look. The Charlie Sheen, I used to call it back in the day, way before he was even famous on that. It was way before I was all, look at that Charlie Sheen, and would flip it over, both sides would be shiny. But in general, it was like you create a little pouch out of that. And the cool part with the cellophane is it sticks to itself. So you just create a little flap and you lick it and flap it over, fill it up with some hash, roll that, and what you do is you do 3 layers of paper, like I was saying. The first one dry, and then the second one wet, and then the third one dry again. So you have like a pocket in there. And then I just put it on the stove, put it on a frying pan, put it on super low, and just keep flipping that thing back and forth over and over again. And what it does is it puffs up after about 5 minutes. And when it puffs up, that means it's steaming on the inside. So it's steam, but there's that air in between, and then it's at the really nice temperature at that point, and then you can sit it in a book press or whatever press you can. That was the step up. I was like, I got a book press now. Now I'm moving up, and hit it on the book press, leave it till it's cooled down totally, peel it back, and it's like a nice black, looks like a real proper hash at that point. Now it all depended on the product you were putting into it, and that was the first thing you learned is, wow, shitty products makes really shitty hash. So don't think you're going to turn it into gold that way. But as far as just simple pressing techniques, and when you have good hash and you do it that way, it's like, wow, you got like something like it pops, all the flavors really.
I've seen the dudes I saw some video footage of like dudes, the hash farmers in the reef, and they're walking around and they all have their little jars of sift, on them. And they just like put it in the cigarette plastic and with a lighter, heat it up, and then like pop it in the hand and they heat it real quick, and then they
little extra plastic in there. It's
then throw some skin cells on that.
A little skin and plastic for the extra flavor.
They love that.
But no, in general,
There's
is
something to be said about charas, though. There's a different type of high from that type of press and that type of trichome in general.
I feel like there's something going on too, as far as like you're to some extent oxidizing, so you're causing some conversion to CBN.
Well, yeah, and a
whether
lot of
it's
it
a
has to do with
partial
the
conversion,
carboxylation, you know, and
yeah, so no, it seems like you get a kind of a more dreamy high from charas too. It was kind of more of a sort of a chill. It wasn't so ampy, that's for sure.
I still reminisce on chilling in India by the beach and smoking charas.
But
it's a different type of high,
and it's got some awesome
different flavor
tones. There's some tones
more
in there,
anise and more earthy, and
there's definitely some tones in there that are awesome, and you're like, that's real charas. You know what I mean? That's that flavor you can't recreate.
And then you can even tell the difference in India from like the northern regions of charas to the southern regions. You know, generally
higher
speaking,
altitude.
the northern regions in Nepal are going to have that lighter color because of the strains and the altitude that they're using, and obviously the environment. There's so many variables. The lower regions have a little bit more humidity, so that hash is going to be darker, more that very, very malleable charas type of consistency. But I love it all. From dry sift to water hash to pressed, non-pressed, I like hash.
Right on. Cool. Well, Mike, we want to thank you for coming on again, and if you wanted to tell people how to connect with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. If anyone out there is curious, the website is just drysiftwizard.com. And if you've got Instagram, at drysiftwizard, those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Right on, brother. And I'll link up with you a little later.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Right on.
Thanks. So we should last little
yes,
sponsor
shout outs again, of course. I don't know that we even finished everyone.
We didn't do
last time.
Incredibles.
Exactly,
last time,
we didn't do Incredibles.
So Incredible Edibles, our number one favorite in this state and pretty much in the universe. They got I don't know, we like 12 now, 12 flavors. Keep dropping them, and you know now the Makiba,
I've known
Makiba
them all
bar is
the
going
entire time. And,
yeah, but did the new one come out?
The Afgado bar, I know that one
what
too.
Is it?
Afgado.
What is it?
Coffee bar. It's solid.
Latte.
It's got like
it's more
more milligrams to it than like an actual Red Bull or whatever. So it's pretty solid.
Are you on one right now?
I haven't tried one. I did try one of the tangerine gummies yesterday though, and they were actually really good.
Flavor.
Yeah.
Nice. And so available in hundreds of shops all over the state. So if they're not available in your shop, make sure to get them there. You'll make everybody in your neighborhood super happy.
Oh, I got one for you, Adam.
Tell me.
People have been asking where they can get shirts, and that's at shop.hoodlabstore.com.
That's right. We need to shout that out.
Back in?
Definitely. And we have some new ones in stock.
New ones in, and I think we'll have some dab rags coming on the store soon.
Dab rags coming soon.
Smo, big up Smo. I've been on Hash all week since you showed me that tech. And I brought this out to the convention, and I was like, "Yo, Nika, you want to?" He was showing the press tech. I was like, "You want to rip this?" And he took a honking huge rip. I guess he didn't know how these things roast.
That thing is awesome.
And he definitely coughed till he cried, and it was amazing. And it was just great to see. It was great to see.
See, you're making people
right behind
cry.
his
making
booth.
People cry out here.
Way to go, Smo.
Way to go.
The only vape pen I'll fuck with.
Okay, so
and you can get them at thedabstation.com.
And next week you can get a chance to win one.
To win, yeah, we're doing giveaways. We got this Smo. We're giving away this. We're also giving away this. I got a bunch
not
of
this because you got new
not
ones.
this one, but ChemDog sent me a bunch of these actually really awesome chillums. So we're gonna give away 3 of them. Next week we're doing Thanksgiving. We're giving you stuff as a thanks for being with us. Well, not giving it to you.
Actually,
you don't get
I will
anything.
be here.
You don't get
My
anything
flight
anyway.
isn't until.
You
I know,
can't win anything.
It's Thanksgiving.
You
It's
can't,
not like
you're disqualified. Don't worry.
Yeah. And also, if no one's listening to this live, so who cares? But also, Crunchy will be doing I believe, medicated meal for us on the show.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna fuck.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna spend too much time around Kyle for sure.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, definitely going to be awesome next week. It's put on a Wednesday. Thanksgiving's on a Thursday, so it's pretty much the last day
You're
of the
home
week.
with your families and shit, watching football because the day before Thanksgiving.
Every year for the last 5 years, they take me out to Amsterdam for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's true. Or you're in Amsterdam.
No, I'm done with that.
If you're going to the Amsterdam Cup, I got to talk to you about some shit for that too. But if you're going to the Amsterdam Cup,
tell me.
Let them know about this show because those Dutch people act like they know it all, but they don't know it all. And I know we have some Dutch listeners, and I don't mean to offend you, but we only have like 2 of you. I see the web traffic. I know how many Dutch listeners we have. It's not enough.
Change that for you guys. I'll help with that.
Yeah, there you go,
Yeah,
Nico.
exactly. And we'll hype you up over there so that you better, while people are listening, they'll be like, wow.
That Nikki T guy.
That Nikki T guy. He's getting shout outs all over the place.
I'll be doing some work in Amsterdam for sure this year.
Nice.
We'll give you a call and we'll get an update. We'll call it the Cannabis Cup date, right?
Cool.
There you go.
There you go.
Cannabis Cup date with Nikki T. Booyah.
If we remember to do that, because we're going to be having a medicated.
You're going to
meal
have
on
your
this
phone
one.
working there, or are you going to be one of those guys who fucks up and goes there and comes back with a $3,000 phone bill?
Well,
I did that one year.
Coming back with a $3,000 phone bill, no matter if my phone works or doesn't work. Somehow I get fucked, but. I'll do my best to be contactable.
Get us a number.
Maybe
we'll
Skype, maybe Viper or whatever the heck.
Viper, we're the Viper.
Viper,
guys.
we're the Vipers. We're the Viper guys. On which
Viper.
big ups,
Isn't it
Rick
called
Cusick.
Viper?
Did you see his? I saw the video is circulating on Facebook right now
With
of him
weed.
bringing weed on Fox TV. Yeah,
Not bad.
And then
Nice.
he was on our show right after. Like
Right
that was the
after.
thing he did after that. So yeah,
Big up
pretty
Rick
good
for real.
Straight from
Yeah,
the
that's
studio.
family
to-
there.
And of course, shout out Willie Waldman.
Yep. Willie
Shout out
Waldman,
Perkins.
and the Banyan and Jane's Addiction shows tonight here in Denver. So if you're in Denver and you're into those bands, tonight's your night.
Adam will be at Jane's Addiction.
I'll be at both, maybe. Who
There he
knows?
goes.
It's one of those
They
nights.
said that Banyan show is going to go till like 3, 4 a.m.
I know.
So
Banyan goes off.
goes off Ryan style.
Like he said, it's
Should
tribal,
Ryan style?
tribal
I'm gonna be in
psychedelic,
bed, son.
tribal psychedelic
Wow.
jazz. So
That sounds wild.
pretty dope.
So who else do we have to shout out? I feel like we have many people.
Boulder Wellness.
Of course, Boulder Wellness Center.
Still medical,
Still
but
medical, going
working.
wreck in February-ish, it sounds like right now.
I mean, you should. That's your job.
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
helping
yeah,
them,
yeah.
you know,
Where
get-
we're
get the word
talking,
out
we're
there.
I hear you got your badge approved.
Oh, you
gone.
do you have your badge on you, Adam? This is actually the first episode.
Mine's
You got
over
the
there.
lanyard?
I got the
Yeah, I
support,
got my
though, so
badge,
mine's not so
buddy.
exciting. I
Wait,
gotta
how
get
did see? Did you just get a support badge?
No, he got
So
it.
how
Boom.
come, now, did they give you
Boom.
yours in the mail?
They
Yeah.
did not give it to me. They mailed it to
Mailed
me.
it.
They
No,
handed
no, they
him
didn't hand it
his.
to me. No, they didn't.
No, they.
You
they
said you got it.
Dude,
No.
seriously, they sat down with
No,
me.
they
With
didn't.
they
They
took
mailed
the
it. They mailed
picture, put the whole thing together. Then
They
they
showed
sit
it to me.
down,
They
and you
show
think
it
they're
to
going to
you.
give. Yeah, they
And
show
they
it to you,
fucking have to
and
leave.
then they go yoink and put it in an envelope,
Yeah.
and they're
But
like, write your
now
address on here.
They changed it even since when I got it. So when I got it, when they handed you that lanyard, you were legally allowed to work.
Well, that's not the
That's
case
not what you
anymore.
can't
But
have to
now
wait
I
for it.
am legally allowed to work. Adam does not have his badge.
I do. But
He does. He's legally allowed to work, but he has the blue one that is not as cool.
Yeah, you're with it. You're
I'm a
wearing
support
the
guy.
DEA
Come here, supporter.
database.
There you go.
It's good to see that
I want
someone
no-
else is still
I-
a
Yeah.
support badge.
I want
Badges.
I want no
yay.
responsibilities. Is what I want. I don't touch money or anything for anybody.
Yeah, Nick
ever.
T's got his badge. All right.
Support,
On that note,
support.
No, I actually just
And a
got
shout out to my
personal
beautiful
shout-outs to
wife,
the badge. I'm just
Cece,
not
and little
carrying
Nick,
around with you
who's
right now.
getting older by the second, obviously, because he's a kid, but he's getting crazy older. It's like, man, this kid. We leave him for 5 days from Vegas, come back, and it's like, he's bigger. He's bigger and smarter, and it's like, he's almost as smart as me. He's almost. It's like,
he's pretty close. Give him another couple weeks, and he's
Yeah, 2.5.
outsmarting you.
Yeah, he's already outsmarting me, very much so. But and I'll shout out to my mom out at the farm, literally holding it down. So and it's looking good. I'll show you some photos later.
Nice. I got Nika got some shouts. Do it, Nika.
Well, actually, I just like to briefly mention a few spots you can catch me this week. I'll be at Cervantes this Friday playing with Tatanka, Rastasaurus, Pinochle, and Liberation.
Sounds like some bands you might like in there.
Big,
Ryan,
big,
some
big
white
reggae
names.
show.
A lot of white reggae going on.
Big
over
reggae
there.
show over at Cervantes. You know, right now we're in the midst of the reggae revival, and it's thanks to people like Chronix and Kabaka Pyramid coming out of Jamaica with real culture, real roots music coming out of Jamaica again instead of the bashment and dancehall scene. So I'm really excited about it because it's bringing some more culture back into the industry and the community. So check us out at Cervantes this Friday. Tatanka's headlining. I'll be playing all throughout the night from opening up to in-betweeners to actually doing the after party as well. Then actually that next morning I head straight off to Amsterdam. So catch me in Amsterdam at the Melkweg on the 24th for Mila's birthday.
That's really cool.
There you go.
That's a cool party to be at. That's a historic party.
So is that the last day of the thing or a day after? Or what is the deal?
It's in between. It's the day before Legends. It's the day after
well, you're not.
Dabadoo. So it's
you
like
just
right,
said the name on the fucking air, man. Whoa, they're not gonna let you in now.
It's over.
You're done.
Are you kidding me? Do you see how much Mark writes about it? Anyways, you know, and then after that we got the Emerald Cup, which is another one of my very favorite events. So I'll be speaking on I think a couple of the panels at the Emerald Cup and judging as well. So come
Sounds
check
like
out
you're going to
the
be our
Emerald
cannabis
Cup, December
Emerald
You're our
Cup
correspondent,
15th and
buddy.
16th.
You're our cup date correspondent. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
I love cups. It's a excuse for me to party and let loose and you know, celebrate all the
catch you
hard
when you're
work.
really
Says the
hammered.
DJ Hashmaker, who's generally, he's really uptight most of the time.
Hey, you know what? You gotta love what you do in life.
There you go.
That's one of the most important things. I live my dream and I live what is my passion every single day.
Ryan, do you have any shout outs or you're just going to glare angrily into space?
Well, I mean, I'm good. My family's cool. I miss my family, but other than that,
I miss
pretty
my
much
family.
Just do my own thing, you know. Fuck.
Okay.
Brittany can fuck off too.
Nice.
I need to throw that in there.
All right, I'm going to give a shout out to my beautiful wife, Reese, and amazing baby Farron, who ate her first banana this morning, which is pretty dope.
My kid eats
Mushed up
bananas
banana.
every day.
Yeah, your kid's like 5 times older than my kid. So they can eat
Much
bananas.
love, y'all. Thanks for having me on.
Peace out,
course.
guys.